So shut up.
I'm going to go look at Britney Spears pictures.
And he suddenly appears.
There
There
he
he is. Hello, Gordon.
Yes, I had almost made it all the way home, and then I heard the signal and had to head back.
You're quick.
Yes.
That's why you're a superhero.
Okay, so I have something on my mind today.
Okay.
Why is Matt McLaren banned from Airbnb?
That's on my mind also. Fine.
Really?
We're thinking the same thing.
What happened?
Well, this goes back, man, it's been over 4 years. So we got an Airbnb for a birthday party for myself. And ahead of time, let them know what we were doing and all of this.
Like at a vacation destination?
It was here in Dallas. We rented an Airbnb in Dallas.
But you were living
in Dallas.
in Alabama at the time?
No, this is when I still lived here before I moved to Alabama. But
why did you get an
apartment.
Airbnb when you already lived in town?
We were at an apartment, and it was a big deal, so we wanted to have a larger party and a space to have people come over and just party and celebrate.
Yeah, Airbnb doesn't want you to rent an Airbnb for a party or a porn.
We let them know what the deal was, and they said it was cool. The people whose Airbnb it was.
Huh.
And it wasn't out of control or anything. What happened?
How many people?
I don't know, probably 40? 30, something like that.
That's a big party.
We told them what was going to happen.
How many bedrooms in this Airbnb?
Probably 3 or 4. It was like a normal sized house, but we didn't have a home at the time. We were in an apartment, so we wanted more space.
Way to go, Donnie.
What?
Yeah. My life had been a failure up to that point. So thanks for pointing that out. I'm aware.
You're welcome.
Not to say that it's a success
Okay,
now. Anyway.
but wait a second. When you say that you had told them, did you say, hey, look, I'm having my
yes, we're having
birthday
a
party. It's just going to be a
celebration.
small gathering of our friends
It
and
was
family.
probably more of that nature, yeah. And,
so
and
you'd kind of undersold it.
Well, we said, look, this is a big celebration coming up. I think we estimated like 20-something people going to be there, and it was probably a little bit more than that. So to be fair, more people showed up than we anticipated. That being said, what happened was a lot of people were drinking. Somebody got sick, and so we cleaned up the vomit, and they had baking soda in their fridge that we used to clean up the puke with. Apparently, we had left some of the baking soda out, and they took pictures of it and reported to Airbnb that it was cocaine and that we had been doing illegal drugs in the Airbnb. We didn't know this at the time, but if somebody reports something like that to Airbnb, they basically take their word for it, and there's nothing we could do. Nothing.
There's no appeals process.
No, there's no appeals process. They just ban you immediately. They ban your phone number, your email. It is there's no way that I can get around unless I use somebody else to book it for me, which we've done a couple of times. But yeah, it's me and the lady. Neither one of us can use it.
Dang.
And it was ridiculous because the pictures they took.
Do you have copies of the pictures?
No,
they send
not
you
anymore.
Them?
They did originally, but we don't have them anymore. I mean, it would be, I don't know how much that type of drug costs, but I assume, because there was a small pile of it, that you're talking about a couple $1,000s worth of cocaine that we supposedly left behind. And there's nothing you can do. You can't appeal. You can't go to Airbnb and explain what was going on. The people whose home it was, we had no way to reach out to them and be like, take it to the cops, lit it that much cocaine, take it to the police.
Well, all they have to do is put their pinky finger in it and
rub it on the gums.
Yeah.
You've watched so much TV.
That's all you have to do. Just even put it on your tongue.
Have you ever seen someone do
Once
that
it
in
starts
person?
bubbling, you know.
Right.
It's baking soda.
No, I haven't.
Then how do you know that works?
Yeah, how do you know?
Because of television and movies.
Well,
that's where I get all my information.
And so the idea is if you rub it on your gums, then it makes your gums go numb, right?
But you're basically doing the drug right there, right? So if you're,
I don't think so. I don't think you get high off of it. I think it just numbs your gums.
And okay, maybe so. I don't know.
And that's why I used to buy cocaine. Like I had a dealer and everything, and it was because I had horrible toothaches.
And it worked really well.
And that's what I would use.
So instead of getting like the Red Cross medicine, you just
bought
cocaine.
So I would, meet people in back alleys and buy
and was it always the shaking hands
dime
bit?
bag of cocaine? I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's pot.
Yeah, I don't know what the measurements are. I'm not educated in that field.
Okay.
But that's my thing.
There's
Like,
something
why-
called an 8-ball. I know that.
Yes.
But if you're Airbnb, why wouldn't you be, hey, we need to get the police involved because that's a significant amount of an illegal drug.
Right.
And it's just, I guess, that's right. It must be cocaine. Ban these people for life. So now we have to use the other one.
I'm wondering if did they not name some other damage that you guys had done? I mean, they had to clean up puke off of something, right?
No, we had cleaned everything. Like, we cleaned the house, and I mean, it looked good. We just apparently
You missed the spot.
had missed that on the bedside table. It was like just a pile of baking powder.
Somebody threw up in the bedroom?
Yeah.
That's a part.
Are you sure it wasn't cocaine?
Yes. 100% it wasn't.
Okay.
So if someone tasked you right now and said, go out and get 2 8-balls of cocaine, would you even know where to start?
No.
Yes.
Yes, actually.
You would?
I know someone
Yeah, I do too. No,
who I would call that used to work here.
I think
to
I know
get you on the
somebody
right
who could
path?
get
Yes.
some.
No, I don't know. I don't think that I could. I mean, I would have to ask around.
It's really interesting. I've never tried this before.
Because I would be hard pressed if I'm not going to a state where weed is legal and you task me to go get a dime bag of weed. I wouldn't know where to go.
Like right now, you couldn't?
No.
Oh, man.
I don't think I do. Unless there are people around me that do that and I have no clue. I wouldn't know where to start.
I would just go to a couple of friends that I know and be like, hey, and they would immediately know. And then that makes me wonder, do they also know where to get other items?
Right.
Potentially.
I've only been to 3 parties in which cocaine was broken out, and it creeped me out each time.
That is
It's a
creepy
weird deal,
feeling
man.
to be around because I was.
And I know
I
we
was-
sound like such squares because there's probably some
Oh.
P1s who are like, man,
I
those are my
am.
buddies. A few times a year we do it, man. It's no big deal.
Because we were offered.
Too scary.
Yeah, we were offered that at a party once. Politely declined.
Uh-huh.
Like, hey, do you?
Like, how
It's
do
just
they,
not for
is
me.
it, like, they turn around and go, hey, would you like some of this?
No, it's not. It's not just in the hand. It's just letting you know that there's some of that at this party.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was with the lady, and of course, when you're offered, it's just like the drink.
Yeah.
So my wife, being a nice fan of the soft drink, was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, she's a little thirsty. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if they're talking
the
about
other
the
so you're-
soft drink right now.
Your wife was asked if she wanted cocaine, and she said yes.
But it was just Coke.
Oh, I see.
And she thought it was the soft drink.
Would you like some Coke? Or we have Coke available. It's in the kitchen.
Like, yeah.
Feel free.
yeah,
She's like,
we got
oh.
a straw. There's a straw in there, and
You're looking in the fridge. Where is it?
Yeah, I'm
No, it's over there. It's on the
Sure.
table. I thought that was baking soda.
I don't know if that's the right one or not.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. I've never tried, and I have zero interest. So
I do too.
boy, I have interest.
I
I'm
have
just too
zero
scared.
interest.
I have interest in everything,
the problem
but I'm
is
too scared of something.
you try to go buy it, and it's the undercover cop,
Right.
and you're in prison for life.
It was just when we were growing up and going. I know we're close to the same age. That weed was so evil
Yeah.
in our youth that to where it is now, it's like you wouldn't even hesitate if someone said, "Hey, you want to, tug on this or whatever." You go, "Okay, whatever."
Do you want to tug on this?
The joint.
That's the way
so to
hip
speak.
kids
Is that what
talk
you
to
do
each
when
other.
you-
It's just I'm old, Matt.
Huh.
Mark that. That's a good drop. We can use that. Donnie saying
Want to
this.
tug on that?
Yeah.
But I always would think that it was the one. Remember the rat poison phase of weed?
What?
They
That
were
it was-
cutting it with rat poison.
Yeah. And I always thought that if I tried it one time, that's what I would get, and it would immediately kill me. And I never indulged.
So I remember when the rumor was that weed was being cut with formaldehyde, like the stuff they embalm people with.
It's interesting.
I don't know what the story is with that.
I don't know.
Okay, but here's the hypothetical. If someone came to you, if Katrina came down from heaven and said, Donnie, here is the purest cocaine. It's not cut with rat poisoning or baby powder or baking soda or Matt's miracle vomit cleanup stuff. Would you try it?
No.
Pure 100% Colombian cocaine.
No.
Why not?
I think I'm out.
And it's guaranteed not to kill you.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
your heart-
I don't know. It's not guaranteed not to kill you, but it's just guaranteed that there's no fentanyl in it, or I don't know if that was a rumor
I
or
wouldn't
whatever.
know
but-
the amount to take as far as Because you always see, in the movies where they just have the
but
little
Jesus
key.
prepares the bump for you, so you know that it is
It's
the
the right
proper.
amount.
He's omniscient, so he knows the exact right amount.
It's just how much you put on your pinky nail.
Jesus pulls out his house key and
Cuts it for me,
Yeah,
puts
and
it right
puts it-
there.
puts
To the
it up
pearly
your nose.
gates. He's like, oh, look at this. There's a little scoop on the end.
God, wouldn't that creep you out?
If
If during the
Jesus
second
did
coming,
it-
Jesus came back, but he had one long pinky nail. It was just kind of unexplained that he never made reference to.
Yeah, I still don't know if I do it. That's just something that I've never had interest in. Like before,
All right, what
everything
about
was-
heroin?
Oh no,
No.
Really?
no!
Never.
I would. If you gave me a choice, you're definitely going coke. Like
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
not.
if you
I'm
had
not
to
even
take
thinking
one or
about
the
messing
other.
with
Okay, LSD.
heroin. Okay.
Okay. That was huge.
Oh,
Now
interesting.
that's-
I got a very different tone shift there.
Quick about face there.
Because I've heard the differences in that. That's like Shitty X or anything like that, which people
Really?
at parties would just say, "Hey, it's just you just feel good, man.
So you
And
just
I'm
love
like,
everyone, man.
But
Is that the same as Molly?
yeah,
Okay.
I can do that without
I think.
a drop of anything.
I answered
the
confidently, then quickly my confidence wavered. Yeah, I think Molly and X and MDMA, that's all the same type of stuff, right? It's all the same thing. Why is everyone looking at me like
I don't
this?
know. You
the
sound
drug
confident, so I'm
expert.
going to say
I'm
yes.
not a drug expert.
I
I just said that if Jesus
It's-
gave you a key bump, would you take it?
It took me 45, 46 years to even dabble in the evil weed as far as edibles will go. So why am I now all of a sudden graduating to everything else? I feel pretty fine in my place right now.
I'm going to go to one of Matt's birthday parties.
Yeah,
I hear things
apparently.
get crazy there.
Yeah, we have piles of it just sitting around.
Because if you handed me a key full of baking soda, I'd do it, and I probably think I was on coke, and I'm like, "Oh, this is the greatest high ever!"
What is
I'm
this?
just running around the house. It's like,
You don't even know what's happening.
That was Arm & Hammer, dude. Like,
We're
what
like,
are you
dude,
doing?
we were cleaning up puke. Why did you just snort that?
like, yeah.
Gross.
Some guy runs in. I go, oh, look at this whole pile. Can I have some?
So you've
guess.
never been around cocaine that you know about?
Not that I know of, except for the one party where it was
That one
offered,
party.
but I never saw
But
it.
you didn't see it.
Man, okay.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I've seen it.
Done it?
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
it's illegal.
Well, I know it's illegal, but it's in the past now. You can
was-
safely.
Yeah,
It's
statute
many
of
years
limitations,
ago.
right?
Yeah.
Great, just what I need.
It's only 3 weeks
So-
ago, so.
So when
No.
was this?
Minimum 10 years ago, easy.
And
It's
so
been-
what does it feel like? What does it make you feel like? Once again, we advise everyone, don't do this. This is totally... He only did it in order to raise awareness.
Yes, it was in college. I mean, it was a long, long
College.
time ago.
So is it this great feeling
Yeah.
that everyone talks...
Pretty euphoric, I would say. I can understand why people could get way into it and hooked on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time I would only do it, this is the dumbest reasoning ever. There was a nurse, somebody who was a nurse that was there, and I thought, okay, well, if something were to go wrong, you can save my life.
Yeah, she
And
can
they were-
easily save
Yeah,
you from
and
an
they said,
overdose.
oh, yeah, I got you for
As
sure.
your heart explodes in the
Right.
center of your chest,
Right.
she
And
can
then I
reach in
thought,
there and
why-
fix that all
yeah,
up. I
never
mean, it's
again.
Just with basic household
Shit,
tools.
Never again.
Super glue. She has the baking
Just get rid
soda.
of Phillips head.
Baking soda can
screwdriver,
clean up
maybe some
anything.
channel locks,
Yeah.
and she'll repair that.
It's one of those things. I mean, it's. I was a theater major in college. You see some weird stuff.
Right.
A pair of tweezers and some Cheez-Its. That'll
Yeah,
fix
she
anything.
can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the MacGyver of nurses.
I mean, well, that's in my head. It made sense. So
Okay, so and then like, is it one of those deals where you had to do it the whole rest of the night because once you start, you want to keep going?
you probably were supposed to, but I just could not get out of my head that every time was like a lottery ticket of chance.
Uh-huh.
And so once I had, like, I never wanted
It's every
to,
20 minutes or something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. Like, it doesn't last that long, and I never wanted to risk it again. I just was like, no.
So you did what, 3-4 times or 5, 6?
Literally once. One
Oh,
time.
really?
Yeah. And then I just have never ever done it again, and I'd have zero desire.
But it was awesome.
It was, yeah.
Uh-oh.
But you can't, like, in my head, it's
The Len Bias thing screwed me up.
See, and that's
like,
the
that
thing.
was so scary to me.
But
is I
you
was
just don't know
afraid-
how many times
Right.
he's done it, how much he had. Like, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well-
that's why I would never know how to get the right. Because even the first time you may have, like, a cookie or something, and it's, hey, and they'll tell you, don't have too much because
You
you'll
get to feeling sick afterwards.
But you'll have a little, and then you'll say, "Oh, it's nothing." I don't feel anything, and you'll keep indulging until maybe you do. So it's always that warning. So I was,
That's the problem.
I probably just took a corner and was like, ha, yeah, but I don't feel anything. So it's
Like pot cookies?
It's just really weird to try to get the right amount.
Oh, dude, I went to this party one time, and there was a plate of brownies on the counter, and no one told me.
Oh, no.
How many did you eat?
I ate at least 1.5 of these things. And you have to understand, with me and pot, I hate pot. Like, I can't stand that feeling. I've tried it, I don't know, let's say 10 times.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Because every time I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe everyone's always like, yeah, you didn't have the good stuff. You got to do this. There's always these pot mentors around me. And every single time I feel the exact same way, which is just this huge, tight ball of anxiety right in the middle of my chest, cotton mouth. I just want the feeling to end. There's nothing pleasurable about it to me. And I pounded, 1.5, 2 of these brownies, and then someone mentioned to me, like 10 minutes later, hey, what happened to the brownies? Somebody been eating it? Yeah, I ate those. They just uncovered them right before I got to the party, and everyone was going to do them later, and I could not stand it. It was such a horrible feeling.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I feel like it would just put you to sleep.
That's just got to be the worst.
Yeah.
And it's the anticipation of realizing what's happening is probably what would scare the hell out of me.
Especially if you have no idea how much is in them.
Right. It's like,
all.
okay, oh my gosh, just a brownie and a half, and then you're just waiting.
300 milligram brownie.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't. I just, that would be horrible. I have zero desire to do anything like that.
See, my problem is I have desire to do everything.
I used to.
But not everything.
I
There's
have
something
that-
you'll stay away from, though, right?
And I'm wondering if it's like tied into my ADHD or something. Like I'm just always, I just don't. I eat addictively. When I used to drink, I didn't handle drinking well. I used to smoke. It's like all those things, and then every time I tried to quit, it would always be, oh well, I can do it now. I've got to quit for like a year or something, and so I'll just start doing moderation. And it's like moderation is not really in my genetic makeup.
You either go hard or go home. That's your philosophy?
Yeah.
That's tough.
I mean, it's not, and I don't want to be that way. Like I know that spiritually, emotionally, and physically, that moderation is the sweet spot,
And
right, in life.
I've seen that with you, like when we go to restaurants, like team dinners or whatever.
Yeah.
You always kind of hesitate to, when you're ordering the food, like you're really careful about it.
Yeah.
Because when you go in, you go pretty hard.
I know.
And that's just your whole aspect of life,
Yeah,
huh? Man,
right.
I don't know if I've ever been around anyone that can.
It
and
sucks.
that's everything with you.
Yeah, I mean, I have to watch it too, because I'll get hyper focused. Like even if it's on musical equipment, it's like I can't just study up on one particular instrument. I've got to learn every instrument that company made during this particular period of time, and it's like crazy the way it has this effect on me.
Like, is
where
it hard to get satisfaction in those things? Is that the mindset, or?
Overall, when I back away from it, I just go, I've wasted so much time just with a bunch of things that I get kind of addicted to or focused on. And it's
interesting.
Yeah, I know.
It makes sense, actually.
It may be just a dopamine imbalance in me. I don't know if ADHD, I guess, affects your whatever, to where you're always looking for something to give you that, what the
And
other
have you
people's
noticed-
baseline
No, I
is.
think you're right.
Have you noticed this forever? Because we didn't have ADHD when we were kids.
No,
it wasn't diagnosed.
Yeah,
as
I
that.
wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult, and I still thought the diagnosis was BS for many years afterwards. Because I'm like, I don't have ADHD. Because I also thought that, well, I don't have trouble focusing when it's something I want to focus on, because I would get in these hyper fixated places to where I would I would focus on whether I got into, I don't know, Roman history, and then I had to learn everything about Roman history at once, and then after that passion was over with, then it was, I wonder what clocks from the 1890s. I want to study and figure out everything about that, and I would get hyper-focused on that. So I was like, if I can focus on something, that doesn't seem like hyperactive attention deficit disorder, because I do have attention. But then I found out that is also a symptom of ADHD, is the hyperfixation.
How'd you get diagnosed? Did you go somewhere
I had
professionally?
to go see a psychiatrist.
Because I've had people say that they think I have it. that are very close to me that are like, I think you probably have this. I'm like, what? I mean, kind of like you, like.
Yeah, it sounds bogus to me because it just sounds like, because it seems like everybody's getting diagnosed with it, and I have, So I was resistant towards it, but then it started making sense as explanatory to my life experience, which was that I did always have problems in school.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was just because school didn't interest me, but then I also started realizing I just couldn't stay in that sweet middle ground of kind of constant, steady work will get you across the finish line. I always didn't focus on anything until the very last moment and then have to do an all-nighter to get something done because I couldn't stay focused on a day-to-day basis.
Man.
And so
that's how I am.
And so I was always behind in school.
Yeah.
And then I always had to do this thing of to cover up my deficit, I would have to do these Hail Marys of creativity to impress the teacher with this incredible, presentation that I did that was outside of the rules, but she would reward me for being so creative with it. And then I learned the thing about how, I can't seem to paint within the lines. And so I was always having to paint outside of the lines in order to make up for the fact that I couldn't paint inside the lines. Anyway, long story short is it taught me some maladaptive behaviors that ended up working out for me professionally.
Sure.
But it made life very difficult to live that way. And it caused a lot of angst with me that I couldn't seem to do what other people around me seemed to be able to do. Like
that we've had to pull him out of school, regular school, until we can get him caught up with his classmates. He's tagging along with me to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, while his mama's off in the Greek Isles with Captain Rex, the shirtless wonder, as she calls him. Yeah, she really likes it that he captains the Bravo Eugenia wearing only a captain's hat and a Speedo.
Okay, look, we don't need to know about all that.
Says it really gets her eggs moving again.
We need to talk football with you.
Because she's frustrated with me.
Well,
Is
that's
she?
too bad.
Yeah, because it takes me like 10 Viagra before I can even get a half chub going. And that's, it's frustrating.
We're on the air
hear
right
about
now,
all this.
Jerry, on the air.
It's like thumbing silly putty into the end of a garden hose or something.
Bingo.
It's just
It was
like,
a bingo,
bingo.
but we don't
Anyway.
have.
let's talk football.
Yeah, let's talk football.
Yeah, where should we start? There's so much going on. What about the trade you made for Trey Lance?
Well, I'm excited. I think it was necessary, and it was very important to a lot that goes on. I mean, look, it's finally here. We're at the beginning of the Jerry Jones Memorial last season, okay? So we need to get a Super Bowl this season. I'm just not feeling like I'm long for this world.
Wow.
I'm getting up there in age. And, and I was very encouraged that we beat them Vegas Raiders yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know
2
a lot
days
of people are wondering why we're getting rid of that Will Greer after they saw him play so well yesterday. But
2 days ago.
2 days ago. But
he
those
played
people
great.
obviously aren't fishermen. I know, Jub, you're a fisherman, and you know what you do when you catch an impressive fish, don't you?
Well, I guess it depends if we're keeping them or not.
No, you release it. That's what you do. You release it back into the wild, and that's what we did with Will Greer. We released it. So, but people were so focused on Will Greer's performance yesterday plus one day that that they didn't pay attention to our other quarterback's great performance.
Your other quarterbacks. Oh, Dak calling the plays?
Called a hell of a game. I think we found his true calling.
You think?
He clearly should be a coordinator and not an interception machine on the field during the games.
Man.
Well, you've done that before, moving a quarterback straight to coordinator in Kellen Moore. So
Yeah.
So maybe are you saying Dak can be Trey Lance's coordinator?
I think so. I mean, look, move Dak to offensive coordinator, and I got this genius move that I made getting that Trey Lance. And I love that. Love surprising my head coach and players with out of the blue GMing like that. See, I'm a guy who's big into strategicality.
Okay.
Strategicality. That's when you're very impressive when it comes to strategicals. And as any general or admiral will tell you, one of the most important strategies that you can use is that element of surprise, and that's what I used. I used that element of surprise GMing
But
to get get a new Dak Prescott contract leverage tool. That's what I'm calling Trey Lance.
But you said this preseason you believe in Dak.
Yeah, I believe he can get the ball to the opposing team about 3 or 4 times a game.
Oh, man.
I know, but hey, look, let's see if Trey can give it to me, Lance, this year. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's my Super Bowl insurance. You know, if something happens to Dak, I need somebody who I feel good about, and I chose my hand-picked him.
Okay.
Hand-picked him.
Well.
In fact, with the Giants here in about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
we may rotate Dak and Trey Lance. What do you think about that?
Rotating quarterbacks.
I want to see what Lance can do.
Sounds crazy.
We'll platoon them. Didn't we do that with Pallure and somebody else a long time ago?
I think it was Staubach and Morton a long time.
And I know, Gordo, you're a huge fan of this show. I love The Righteous Gemstones. It's on HBO or Max, whatever you call it these days. It's basically a 30-minute sitcom each week.
It's on Cinemax or HBO? What did you say?
It's on HBO or Max, which is the new HBO, what
okay.
they're calling their app, I guess. And it's about a family of televangelists and megachurch pastors led by Eli Gemstone, played by John Goodman. Could they have gotten anybody better than John Goodman to play that role? I don't think so.
He's great. Boy, talk about a long and relevant career. I mean, he has solidly worked for 40 years now.
And he's pretty much great in every role.
Yes. And he's one of the great hosts on Saturday Night Live. I always admire the guys who, when they are on Saturday Night Live, they make the whole episode. You know, Alec Baldwin's like that, obviously Tom Hanks, Steve Martin, all those guys who have been doing it many, many times. But John Goodman's another one that is always great on Saturday Night Live.
And speaking of always great, this whole show is the brainchild of Danny McBride. Mm-hmm. He created it, and he stars as the oldest son, the heir apparent, the Stephen Jones to his dad's Jerry Jones, Eli Gemstone's Jerry Jones. And I've always made the comparison between the Jones family and the Gemstones because there's a dad who is the all-powerful patriarch of the family and the business, and there's the oldest son who's the heir apparent. There's the middle child who's the daughter, just like Charlotte. And then there's the young son, the youngest of the three, just like Jerry Jr.
Right.
And they're very wealthy and they're very over the top. It's the Jones family is our version of the Righteous Gemstones, and they probably cuss just as much.
Yes. And no matter how much wealth they have, there's still that kind of classless element to them, the way that Jerry and them used to party.
Right.
I think Jerry and them are a little bit more classy, hopefully, than the Righteous Gemstones. Because, boy, the Gemstones, the vulgarity on that show,
it's unbelievable,
is through the roof, particularly for a supposedly religious family.
Right. And maybe that's why they do it.
Yeah.
The contrast there, but I've never seen a show that cusses as much.
No.
And some of it's real over the top, gratuitous, and Judy, the middle child, her cussing is...
Yeah, she's a Texan, you know, Edie Patterson.
She's so good in this show.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, she's... I told you this when we were talking about it recently on the air. You know, my two favorite characters, I think, as much as I love Danny McBride, who created this and created Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals, and he's done so much great stuff. My favorites on the show are Judy Gemstone and her husband BJ. I think that guy is such an underrated, and of course Baby Billy, Walton Goggins.
He's the uncle.
Uncle Baby Billy.
He was Eli's wife's brother.
Yeah.
So he's related to them. He's an in-law, but he's always working some angle, trying to get back in their good graces, trying to
He has that
get
young
famous.
wife, and they got their teeth fixed.
It's the craziest, wildest, most over-the-top cussing, entertaining show on TV, I think.
And the father, Eli, started off as a pastor, and he built it up into a megachurch. And so they have one of the biggest megachurches in America. And so it's their religious dynasty, and of course they get involved in all these offshoot things like a resort, a biblically based resort, and it's all those side projects that they make a lot of money in. It's not just the donations to the church; they try to start a bunch of businesses, and that is also very similar to what some mega churches, and particularly TV ministries, do.
Mm-hmm.
They have other business ventures.
And by the way, after watching the final episode, a lot of people felt like that was the conclusion of the entire series.
It felt like it to me. I didn't realize I didn't realize they had signed on for another season.
Yeah, they just recently announced that there is going to be a season 4. But you're right, because you told me that before I saw it, that it felt like a wrap up to the whole thing. And when I watched it, it did feel like the end of the series. And I kept thinking, where can they take it from here? I'm sure there's always a way you can go, but it would have been a good time to end it, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like they ended season 3 not knowing whether or not they were signed up for another one.
Yeah.
So they could conceivably have a wrap-up there if that was the end of the show.
Right. But it's great that we have a preacher's kid for this segment.
Thank you.
Because I wanted to talk about mega churches, because I've been to a couple mega churches.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we have more here in North Texas than pretty much anywhere in the country. The state of Texas has a total of 212 mega churches, and only California has more with 218.
What is a mega church? Like, how would you define that?
So they say that they are usually non-denominational.
Right.
And they have a large average weekly attendance of at least 2,000. But some of these that we'll talk about here in the Metroplex and in the state have much larger weekly attendances. And I always kind of, in my mind, not only are they non-denominational, but they have the seating capacity of a small college basketball arena.
Yeah,
it's got to be a big venue.
So Olstein's place down there in Houston, isn't it in a... Is it his place that's in a former stadium?
It's the old
arena?
Summit where the Houston Rockets won their world championships back in the 90s, the Summit, and where the Cougars used to play too. I think outside of Hawthines, they'd play a couple of games at the Summit. But yeah, they're the number one in terms of size mega church. Lakewood Church is what it's called in Houston, the Joel Osteen Church. They get a weekly attendance of about 50,000.
Holy mackerel.
So in the Summit, for a service, they can probably fit 20,000. So they probably have 2 or 3 services to get to that 50.
And he got that church when his father passed away, I guess. Olstein did.
And he turned it into this?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not up in my Olstein history. But he's the guy, I'm sure a lot of people know who Joel Osteen is. He's, of course, churns out the books as well and has a bunch of other products. But, yeah, he looks like, what does he look like?
He looks like he could be on the Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah.
The second largest church in the state is the Fellowship Church in Grapevine. Average weekly attendance 24,000. And the third largest...
Is that Ed Young's place?
I believe that is Ed Young's place, yes.
Yeah, Ed Young is a P1. I've gone out to lunch with him. And it was weird because Ed's dad and my dad knew each other back in Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
Ed Young's family's from Mississippi. And yeah, so I've found old tapes in my dad's stuff. I have old tapes of Ed Young Sr.'s preaching and as well as my dad's preaching.
Wow.
I know it. It's crazy. And yeah, Ed Young and I went out to lunch, I think, a couple times together. But yeah, he's built that Fellowship Church into something huge.
Your dad started at small churches, but eventually made his way to big churches.
Yeah, First Baptist Richardson, not a mega church,
yeah.
but a larger church.
Do you think he would have liked preaching at a mega church? Would he have liked leading a mega church?
No, I even think First Baptist Richardson was when it gets big like that. I remember him one time saying to me, that once you get into bigger and bigger churches, you kind of become a almost like a CEO rather than a preacher. It's like There's such a big business associated with running a large organization that you're wearing a lot of different hats. And I think that there's a natural barrier to people who just don't want to go bigger than that. And some people can do it. Some people can't.
Gateway Church in Southlake is the third biggest in the state, weekly attendance of about 20,000.
Dang.
Then there's a Woodlands Church down in Houston, Prestonwood Baptist in Plano, weekly attendance 17,000.
I remember when that wasn't a mega church, but it was on the ascent. Billy Weber was the name of the pastor way back in the day.
Also on this list in the top 10, Lake Point Church in Rockwall. That's one of the mega churches that I've been to.
So you went there.
I went to Lake Point, and I have to say, the couple of mega churches that I've attended, I've kind of liked them.
Pleasant experience?
Yeah, it really is. There's something very communal feeling when all of you are there for a purpose. And
Yeah.
you've got more going on and more to look at, and there's a bigger energy in the place. I love the small churches too, but my experience,
I call it Big C energy, the Big JC.
Big JC energy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. My experiences in the mega churches have been positive.
So I think that's what's appealing about them. First of all, that to me the primary benefit of church to humans is that communal feeling, and I think that that's a lot of ways one of our problems is no matter whether you feel like there's any divinity related to religion or not, the thing that it does for humans is it gives you a community of like-minded people that you can lean on and support, and that you feel like you're a part of something. Everyone wants to be a part of something because we're these social creatures. So when you go to those mega churches, they're very good at having programs or things you can be involved in that touch everybody's different interest, that you go to it and it's like almost a huge one-stop shop. The campus there's so many activities and things that they offer. Mm-hmm. They got Starbucks in there. You've got a service that obviously has enough money to make it very interesting and visually appealing.
Concessions at a game.
They got video screens. They got they're in the business of knowing that you can make a message also entertaining that holds your interest. Mm-hmm. Make it compelling in that way than some beaten down place that's falling apart, which a lot of old churches are, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a more traditional church that we have gone to as well, and they have recently grown. They've built a bigger sanctuary, and it feels now like they're heading towards a mega church. And I'm telling you, driving around the Metroplex, it feels like there's a mega church on every corner. They're popping up everywhere.
I know. We're a land of 10,000 churches. I do wonder how it's been going lately, because I think people are moving away from churches. Church is not near the dominant cultural force that it used to be in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and that time. I'm sure it was maybe even bigger than that before, but it feels like the world is going more and more secular. And the megachurch was the thing that kept churches relevant at a time when things were moving more secular, and so they kind of built this version of a church that had all the trappings of secularity, of secular malls and entertainment and kind of that sports theme when you're inside there, and where it gets real amped up and everything. Mm-hmm. They were able to keep churches relevant for longer than they probably would have been had megachurches not been developed. TV ministry was also a huge deal.
Yeah.
That when that started in the 70s, I guess, is when Jerry Falwell was the first one I remember being a real big. But that's, of course, just during my lifetime. I don't know if there was somebody bigger than that. I guess Billy Graham would have been one that had this weird kind of roving mega church. He would have his crusades and he would sell out stadiums for them and preach.
You're right. When we were kids, it seemed like everybody we knew, all the kids on our block or at school, all went to church.
Right.
The family that didn't go to church was the outlier.
Right.
And these days, it
and
probably
now it's the other way
is the
around.
opposite.
Yeah, that family, they go to church all the time.
So it's like the mega churches, as you said, are keeping church alive for a lot of people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where that's kind of sad if the small neighborhood church is going away, like maybe the mom and pop restaurant and the mom and pop drugstore, and it's hard for those to survive these days, I guess.
I know, but I can't imagine any mega church being run as somebody as cynical as the Righteous Gemstones.
No way. The craziest, most over-the-top television show.
But they nail a lot of the aesthetics of those megachurches. Obviously, it's a hyperbolic representation of megachurches, but some of the stuff they get right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy wandering the stage with the Telecaster playing, and stuff. And
And it probably is a struggle, I think, for most, giving them the benefit of the doubt here, most leaders of a megachurch because you do want to grow it and you want to amp it up as much as possible, but you don't want to ever get so absorbed in the money-making part of it or the spectacle part of it that you lose the message. So I bet that's a daily battle for those guys.
Yeah, but the message also has responded to market conditions. I know when prosperity gospel started getting popular in the 80s and so on, that church became about, it wasn't so much about sacrifice. This was one form of preaching that people would do. It wasn't so much about sacrifice and denial of pleasures and all that. It was this idea that God wants you to be successful,
right,
monetarily,
right,
and so all these trappings, these great trappings of the world, are yours. God wants to reward you. If you serve Him, He will reward you with these, the airplanes and
who was the televangelist in Fort Worth that had all of the private planes?
Well, there was Robert Tilton. He was a prosperity gospel guy.
Yeah, there was another one though.
Dallas Fort Worth was kind of the hub of the prosperity gospel TV preacher. There were several of them that we had here. E.V. Grant, I think, was one. There was also the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Wasn't that here? That was the woman with the cotton candy hair. I can't remember. I think they were out.
Kenneth Copeland is who I was thinking.
Kenneth Copeland.
He had the Fort Worth.
Yeah, that's right.
Private airstrip and hangar for his assorted aircraft.
Was he the one that did when the bodies hit the floor? Somebody made like a video of him healing people, and they set it to when the bodies hit the floor. That song.
Yeah, I think so.
Or is that Benny Hinn?
That may have been Benny Hinn.
I think he was also based here.
Boy, we used to watch Benny Hinn a lot when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Just my sister and I for entertainment.
Yeah. We used to watch that all the time, too. I know. It's hard to think that back there was a time where TV, you would watch the broadcast channels and half of them would be taken up with preachers, it seemed like.
Yeah. Dr. Gene Scott.
And all that. But, yeah, I don't know that I've ever been to a megachurch. In my long religious career, I don't know that I've ever visited a megachurch.
I think you should, and I'd be interested to see what you would think of it. It's not my preference, but when I have gone, it's been pleasurable.
Yeah, and I know that there was, when those things first started up, a lot of people looked judgmentally at them. People wearing jeans and showing up and everything super cash and ultra contemporary and all that. And the old timers, looked a little bit askant.
Gotten really vulgar.
Like when he was describing in detail what he wanted to do to that Albanian British singer Dua Lipa, it's like I had to turn it off. I mean, it was just so detailed and so serial killery or something.
I apologize on behalf of the show.
The things he described with such detached, clinical type way. I don't know what was going on. Just creep me out, bruh. That's all I'm saying. Just creep me out.
I hear you.
Some of the terms never heard before, like what is a donkey punch?
I don't know.
I thought that was like a drink or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What's going on. But anyway, hey, listen, Craig, I heard you talking about like churches that go mega.
Yes.
And that's so interesting that you were talking about that because we actually were thinking about transitioning into a mega church.
Really?
Out at my church, yeah.
You're going to transition?
Yeah. I think I just heard the Texas made it illegal to transition, but we're going to try to go mega church anyway. Yeah, I don't know. But, I don't follow like all the political TikToks or
what?
Or Facegram news feeds and stuff. So I don't know exactly what all that political stuff is, but yeah, going into being a mega church, I mean, that like has its advantages. I mean, you can get really cool stuff like video screens,
right? And
you get a full band, not just two guys on low end Taylor singing through a PVPA, which is what we got. But so that'd be like awesome if we win it to be a mega church.
Well, I hope you can do.
How do you do that? Do you apply somewhere, or
I would
get
say
a permit?
I don't think you need a permit. I think you need to maybe build a bigger space to start with.
That's a good point. So maybe some social media outreach, something like that.
Yeah, you could do that.
I kind of have a catchphrase that a lot of people like. I say that I think mega churches are mega cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah, we sell rally towels with that on it.
You do? Yeah. Wow, it's very catchy.
It was so cool. I got to preach in a mega church a few weeks ago, and it was amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. First of all, the light show and the lasers, I mean, it really drove home the point that Jesus died for our sins.
It sounds like it.
I mean, I just, also, I love that I could just get up there with my cool spiky hair and my headset mic and really pace the stage while I encouraged everyone to get crunk for the Lord.
You were in your element.
I was in my element. And then at the end, to punctuate my message, I got to fly over the crowd on a set of wires.
Wow.
High-fiving everyone, just like Jesus did during the Assumption. Just reaching down there, high-fiving them apostles like Jesus did. It was awesome.
I think David Lee Roth did that
It was
too.
awesome. Just to have that feeling of what, the big JC did. I mean,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Gotcha.
Amazing.
Got it.
Yeah. But our church is growing. I mean, we almost raised enough money to buy a new used Econoline van so that we can cart our youth group to Rough Riders games.
Well, those can't cost that much these days.
We're really growing. We're really growing. I'm trying to convince my senior pastor to give us a bigger budget to buy our youth group a new guitar.
That's all you need.
I mean, right now, Craig, we are playing an old parts caster from the mid-'90s, and we're really looking to get into a Harley Benton Les Paul right now. But that's all technical stuff.
Okay.
That's behind-the-scenes budget stuff.
You know your guitars.
Yeah. I'd like to invite you to our mega church, Craig.
Oh, I don't know if I have the
Come on
time.
out. We're really cool, man. We're so cool. We allow people to have, like, Starbucks in the sanctuary.
Wow.
I mean, pretty cool little deal there.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can come dressed in jeans and your Don't Tread on Me t-shirt that you're wearing today.
I don't have one of those
I know
on.
that's your favorite outfit there. But come on out. We'll even let you do a little Bible reading if you want to.
I'll see what I can do. I can't promise anything.
Well, come on out. Really, Craig, I think it'd really help us because we need some donations. We need to pass around that offering plate and get some donations because our handbell group is performing at Pecan Land Mall again. And we need more ringers and we need a new van. We need to get that van.
Aumenta el desempeño de tu vehículo y ahorra gasolina con O'Reilly Auto Parts y Lucas. Llévate 2 botellas de tratamiento para combustible Lucas por solo $10. Además, obtén puntos dobles o rewards con esta oferta. Detalles en la tienda. Realiza tus compras en tu tienda O'Reilly Auto Parts más cercana o visita O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Earlier today, all across the NFL, teams went from 90 to 53. So I don't know if you can do the math off the top of your head, but 32 teams times 37 cuts, you're talking about like 1,000 dudes put out onto the street, I think.
Again, as much as we talk about Patrick Mahomes and Dak and these dudes, this is the league.
It's so stinking hard to make the National Football League. And so, yeah, most of the guys, you'll never know their names. Most of the guys, they'll never be on your fantasy football team or massively affect anything about your team winning or losing, at least in terms of fame or selling jerseys. But if you can make the NFL for one regular season week, you are in the top 10th of 1 percentile of everyone who ever straps on a jock in this great sport. So just say that going in.
Right.
Now, we have a bunch of cuts to tell you about, a bunch of guys who made the team, and maybe we can dedicate the next 10 minutes to that. So real fast, the Cowboys put 4 dudes on season-long injured reserve, and what that means is you don't have to count them on your 53. So you can protect them, but they're also out of service for the entire year, even if they're perfectly healthy, because you put them on this list. And they're not healthy now, but let's say somebody would be good to go like Josh Ball. The thought was he's down for 8 weeks. Well, they just said, no, you're down for the season. So you didn't get cut. You're going to get paid, but we're not using you this entire year.
Right.
And, until Saturday night when our Texas Tech pass rusher forklifted him into next week. I don't know if you saw that play, but
yeah,
is it Tyree Wilson?
It is.
Holy heck, did he destroy Josh Ball. And on that play, Josh hurt himself and was going to miss 8 weeks, and so they just said, how about the full year? So Josh Ball down. David Durden with that ACL, leading us to the ACL hypothetical of last week. DeMarvion Overshown, also I think ACL, right? And then John Stevens, the Sloane Stevens brother, who hurt himself in
plantar
Seattle.
fasciitis? Is that what he had?
Was that right?
I can't remember.
Was,
or is he also an ACL?
I thought he
okay.
ACL'd as well.
Yeah.
And then the many cuts.
Many.
there are several that you're not familiar with, but let's go down the list and take a look and peruse. Ben Banogu. Did I get that right? The TCU pass rusher who was with the Colts, second-round pick with the Colts, and he came here and he was great with Gordon. He got cut. Chuma Edoga, the USC tackle and former Jet, got cut. C.J. Goodwin is expected to be cut and then probably put back on the roster tomorrow, and that's a whole different thing. But you put your first 53 through. Then there are guys like Jordan Lewis, or I'm trying to think of who else, but they're not ready to play yet. So you then put them on in-season injured reserve, or I think the PUP list as well. So you get them through the first 53, and then some of these other guys who you cut, you can reclaim and put back on your roster for week 1.
Yeah, because they cut their only long snapper, Trent Sieg. So
he's definitely coming back.
Yeah, they're expecting no one's going to pick him up, so they'll put him back on.
That's right. So Will Greer was also amongst the cuts, and Mike McCarthy said today he wouldn't mind him back on the practice squad or as a fourth quarterback. I guess the only way would be practice squad. Malik Jefferson, the Longhorn, got cut. Waived. Now, these guys can be claimed. Former sixth-round pick Quinton Bohanna was waived. Isaac Alarcon was waived, the Mexican young man who enjoys cake. He's literally from Mexico. That, in fact, is defined as Mexican.
He is just, for me, he is just a figure on an HBO show that I watch. Nothing more, nothing less, right? He's one of the stars of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, he definitely gained acclaim by being that guy on Hard Knocks.
Eat the cake.
Jabril Cox, who we had high hopes for, the ACL in 2021, never seemed to return to that form. And so the former LSU/North Dakota State linebacker Jabril Cox is out on the streets. Malik Davis, the Florida running back, is also on that list. Matt Farniok, the Cornhusker, right, who played some decent amount of regular season snaps for the Cowboys in the last couple of years. He is out after a disappointing camp. Simi Fehoko, with all the intrigue, he had 3 camps in a row, and finally they cut him loose. And like we said, some of these guys may be back on the practice squad. Dennis Houston is a familiar name. Brock Hoffman was an offensive lineman who had a good camp, and people thought he might be on the fringe. Isaiah Land is another one who was, he had a sack in Seattle, and he had a bunch of pressures against Vegas. But the thing with Isaiah Land is he's just at that edge, and on the Cowboys, we've talked about this, they got like 6 or 7 edges they already like. There was just not a lot of space for Isaiah Land, but they'll definitely put him on the practice squad if they can get him through waivers.
They only kept 3 tight ends. Sean McEwen probably bound for the practice squad again.
Sean McEwen got cut today, and I guess those are most of the names you might recognize. Sheldrick Redwine is out. Tyus Wheat is out. So those are the guys who didn't make the squad. So then real quickly, if you'd like, we can kind of look at where they are right now. Now, again, there will be 3 or 4 names that you think made it, and then tomorrow they'll claim somebody and change it all over again. The 53, to call it the final 53 is a misnomer. They'll take a team picture, but then they'll start changing this constantly.
It's kind of a game, because if they like a guy and they're afraid they're going to lose him to somebody else through waivers or just through free agency, they'll hang on to him in this first cut and let everybody claim who they're going to claim, and then try and sneak him onto the practice squad in the second cut.
Yes, they'll try to exhaust you from all the transactions, and then maybe try to sneak them out in the middle of the night. But I think it's 24 hours teams have to examine the waiver wire and so forth. So 3 quarterbacks, Corby, you know who those are: Dak and Cooper and Trey Lance. 3 running backs: Tony Pollard, Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle. A fullback this year, and that is one of the reasons why they went with 3 tight ends, is the fullback is kind of that 4th tight end on special teams. How much will Mike McCarthy use a fullback? Of course, he made John Kuhn famous, but I don't know how much 21 personnel they're looking at, but Hunter Lipke did make the team. So
is he
an
big on
undrafted
special
free agent.
teams too? Like, he had to have been.
Yeah, I believe that's the way. I believe so, although I haven't done my due diligence on the special teams in the final preseason game yet. Been meaning to do that. Thank you for the reminder. 3 tight ends: Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, and Peyton Hendershot. We have 6 wide receivers: Gallup, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, and then maybe the one surprise, Jalen Brooks, who had a really good camp.
Where do you think the Cowboy tight end room rates if you went around the NFL?
Pretty low.
Like bottom third?
Yeah, they have really nobody that the league knows about.
Right.
They all three have potential, and they're all three very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that they're horrible there. They're
unproven.
Incredibly unknown and unproven.
Yeah.
You know the five on the offensive line to start: Tyron, Tyler, the other Tyler, Zach, and Terrence. Terrence Steele, Zach Bard, Tyler Biadasz, Tyler Smith, and Tyron Smith. And then the three backups, which would have been tough to pick these three in the preseason or at the start of camp. But Awesome Richards, it's basically awesome. ASIM.
Best
Richards.
name ever.
Matt Waletzko, who is the Amari Cooper trade, and T.J. Bass made it. The big, brawling Oregon Duck offensive lineman is the second on our list of undrafted free agent rookies who have made the Dallas Cowboys. So that's your offense.
I'm also seeing a note that Chuma Edoga might be one of those that they want to try and sneak back onto the 53.
Yeah, and I don't think that will be a big problem, but he just did not show much in this training camp, and I know there were some health considerations, but he was pretty spare with the Jets, so I think they were hoping for more from him. But let's go to the defense real quick. Edge, there are so many of them. You have Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence. You have Sam Williams and Dorrance Armstrong. You have Dante Fowler and Junior Fehoko. So 6 edges. Then at tackle, you have Mazi and Osa Odigizua. You have Jonathan Hankins and Neville Gallimore made the team, Corby.
Yeah.
I was worried about him. And Chauncey Golston, who's kind of a tweener.
Why did they bring Neville back?
1 year left, and it looked like it was down to him and Quentin Bohanna. And I think since Bohanna can only do kind of nose tackle stuff, kind of run stuffer stuff, and they already had Jonathan Hankins and Mazi Smith doing that, I think Neville Gallimore's utility, that he can play both defensive tackles, probably got him the job. But he's on the final year of his rookie deal, so
that'll be it.
It's time, buddy. That means Isaiah Land did not make this squad, and again, that's kind of a shock, but that's how she goes. Linebackers, kind of short at linebacker.
Boy, are they.
Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Clark, and Devin Harper look to be the only actual 3, although Marquise Bell is being called a linebacker by some because they've kept so many safeties, and I guess he's running up there by the line of scrimmage a little
I
bit.
mean, in a lot of their defense, they're only playing one linebacker.
Yeah, but it's so weird to just have 3 on the roster.
Yeah.
It looks
and one's
weird.
Leighton.
Yeah, one's Leighton. One's
Yeah.
a neck issue waiting to happen.
We figured Overshone getting hurt would make sure Jabril Cox was on the team, but maybe they're looking at the waiver wire. I don't know. Corners. Stephon Gilmore, Trayvon Diggs, Nashawn Wright, Jordan Lewis, Deron Bland, Eric Scott is another one of the rookies that made this team, and Noah Igbenogany.
There you go.
Yeah,
you did
you
it.
did it.
You did it.
It might be Igbenogany.
Igbenogany.
Yeah.
Cornerback Noah
Igbenogany.
Igbenogany.
There you go.
I did it great.
And then many safeties, including Malik Hooker, Trayvon Diggs, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Jay Ron Kearse, Israel Mukuamu, Marquise Bell, and Wanye Thomas.
Wanye, yeah.
And Wanye, I got to give him credit as another undrafted free agent, but he goes back to 22, so he spent 22 mostly on the practice squad. But that's another dude who made it because of special teams and his ability on the coverage unit, and I didn't see that coming, so good for him. Brandon Aubrey's your kicker, Brian Angers your punter, and like we said, Trent Sieg will have to be reclaimed because they had to put him through waivers. So there's your 53.
Did you see that Maher got cut in Denver?
Did he really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Bless his heart.
By the way, the Cowboys probably the only team in the league just north of 635. The legendary Bone Daddies here to kick off Donnie's DFW Domino Classic. The virtual tournament starts tonight at 6:30.
Go Donnie.
We got happy hour going on out here, so it's a big time. Big day out here for the ticket at Bone Daddies. So I teased that we got a local sports miracle, and man, I mean, I may be underselling that. I cannot believe that SMU is now in what is considered a Power 5 conference. Now, I do understand that it may not matter in a couple of years when they don't get the invite to when the SEC expands or whatever, when they basically just say that, all right, we have 36 teams and that's it.
Yeah, when the ACC is the leftovers.
Yeah,
after Clemson and Florida State and Miami all leave and NC State, whatever.
No matter how you look at it, this is a massive step up, even if they don't get to the ultimate when things shake out.
It's where you have to be now.
Right. This is crazy for my brain to think about, living here, when I was in high school whenever the death penalty happened. And you just can't stress enough how depressing it was, because SMU, they had that run in the 80s, and they were so good. And, 2 in the nation good, undefeated good, Eric Dickerson good. And it just all went away. And, yeah, they had Sir June Jones kind of got him back on track. Definitely Sonny Dykes got him back on track. But it never really seemed to matter.
No, it always felt mid-major.
Right.
When they were successful, it still felt mid.
Yes.
And what we have here is a seat at the big boy table. And the one thing I didn't anticipate, and maybe I should know better because there's no more powerful venom in the universe than college football tribalism, unless you head to London and start talking about your favorite football clubs. But it's wild. And you don't even notice it, especially if you're an NFL person, because it kind of happens all around you. And it happens with people that are all on the same side when they're rooting for the Cowboys. But, boy, the second that breaks out into Saturday talk, they're in these little fractured cliques that you can even try to sort of join up, but you don't get it. You don't quite get it on the same level of how it's programmed in. And the reason I say all this on this momentous day is I'm shocked how many people are irate that SMU pulled this off in this area. And it appears to be a lot of either people that thought they were done holding SMU down and they had won the victory, a la TCU or whoever else might be in that group, or it's people that I guess considered SMU on their very level, and why do they get to go and we don't, which is wild because I'm hearing from so many North Texas enthusiasts who are really upset. Like, what has this team ever done? And I thought this was a sport based on merit, which you did?
Well,
when did you start following it then?
Yeah, it certainly is about money.
Yes, it's about business mergers.
And North Texas could not afford to not take TV money for 9 years.
Yeah, if you thought this was promotion and relegation and you had to earn your way to the big table, I have news for you. It's never been that way. Now, TCU had some sort of variation of that, at least in their heads, that because we did so well at this conference and this conference, we got to be in this one. But honestly, in the boardrooms, maybe they were ultimately going to be a great Metroplex force in the Big 12 anyway. I can't prove that, and their story is one of pulling themselves up on their football bootstraps, so that's cool. But remember their story. They were left out in the cold because Baylor didn't want them in here.
Yeah.
And so everybody punches down the ladder to whoever's below them. It doesn't matter. Like, nobody says, this is like when freshmen get initiated and they say, when I become an upperclassman, I'm not going to do this to the new freshman. I just think it's morally wrong. So I'll go along with you guys, but this ends here. And then by the time you get to be an upperclassman, you're like, I can't wait to give those freshmen the business like I had it happen.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's the deal, right? Texas keeps Baylor out or whatever, and then Baylor wants to keep TCU out, and then TCU wants to keep SMU out. It just keeps going down the line. SMU wants to keep North Texas out, and it's kind of it's just wild tribalism that everybody's trying to win their own Monopoly game.
How much do you think basketball weighed into this for the ACC? Because the ACC is a premier basketball conference.
Yeah.
And certainly Stanford has pedigree. SMU not so much, but they are getting better.
Yeah, I mean, they were good when what's-his-name was coach, or the NBA coach.
Larry Brown.
Larry Brown.
They were on the brink several times at least.
They were, and they packed their little arena and their cute little arena that they have.
What are you doing?
I was being
Moody?
a jerk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was being an ironic jerk. Of
Moody's,
course, I don't feel that way.
Moody's great,
yeah,
but
Moody's badass.
that's about to become an impossible ticket, I would think.
It is. I mean, you're going to have Duke and North Carolina and Louisville and Syracuse and Pitt and UVA.
That sounds amazing.
Dude, Virginia. I mean, you about the national champions that I just named over the last 20 years. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And you're gonna look up in a year from now, and it's like, hey, Bob, do you want to go see Florida State and SMU play? Do you want to see the Clemson game?
Yeah.
Where I can drive 1 minute, basically.
Seriously.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so cool. And yeah, I mean, if you're pissed off about it, get over it. They've paid their dues. This is
the counter would be how?
They've been to hell and back, literally.
They have, mainly from the death penalty.
Yeah.
And just trying any way to get a seat at the table. And look, no matter what any of these schools say, all they want is a seat at the table. It's the A&M argument. They just want to be there, right?
Yeah,
and
you want
do
the
anything
opportunity
to
be the Cinderella story.
Right, yes.
You know that you're not going to become Alabama just
Right.
because you're in a Power 5 or Power 4 conference.
But
you at least can get into the playoff.
Now the path is there, and especially with the transfer portal, and it was there for TCU. Why can't it be there for SMU? Why can't they load up in the portal and start recruiting? Dude, it's going to affect. This is going to affect every single school in Texas, every school, because now they have the clout to tell these kids, yeah, bro, this is who we play now. This is where you're going to go.
It's wild, and then they have ties into California.
Yes.
Stanford's going to be coming here. Cal's going to be coming here.
Right.
I mean,
I can't. I mean,
as a fan, as a neutral, as Switzerland, I'm just thinking this is great for the city. It's for the city sports, podium. I just think this is another great thing where people are going to be coming through the city. And I know the Big 12 has designs on owning basketball, and now the ACC is like, yeah, well, we've owned it for 50 years, so good luck taking it from us. And they'll both play major games,
perfect.
and the major teams will be in the city.
Yeah, and the TCU people that are mad at this, why? You've got your own thing, man.
Because they wanted to box SMU out of the game.
I know, but it's stupid. It is
petty, yes, but so is college sports.
Right, exactly. You just want a playoff game. You're fine. You're going to be fine. You've got their coach.
Yeah, but maybe it's that if you look at it on paper, the strength of the ACC versus the strength of the future Big 12, you could make the argument that SMU is in the better conference.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
And so TCU is going to be butthurt about that.
Probably so. And, again, it may shake out to where it's not that way when Florida State and Clemson bolt and go to the SEC and then North Carolina and Duke go to the Big Ten. There's a lot of dominoes that are still going to fall. But even if those schools, those premier schools, leave, the conference that SMU would be in is still infinitely better than anything they could have possibly dreamt about a year ago.
And they've made such an effort to try and reach out to the Dallas neutral, the Dallas sports fan, the college football enthusiast in the city with very middling results. But like you said, when you have Clemson coming to the Hilltop, that will get a lot of people interested that wouldn't have been interested before.
Absolutely. The question will it be some variation of the other Metroplex teams that you'll fill your stadium, but half of it's going to be the other team?
They're fine with that.
Yeah, probably.
They're fine with that. And you know what? You grow a little bit, and I think TCU did the same thing. When Fort Worth, look, when I was there, nobody cared. Fort Worth didn't care. Nobody cared.
That's a weird thing about SMU that I've always noticed, and maybe it's true to some of these other schools, but SMU in particular, I've never really met a T-shirt fan.
No.
Like either they're SMU,
they don't exist.
They're SMU alumni families, or they don't exist. And their gear is really cool.
It's awesome.
But I've never really seen a T-shirt fan, which is the opposite of what you might say about Texas or OU or Texas A&M.
They got a million of them.
Maybe
million more than their actual.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, well, it's awesome. I'm so happy for everybody over there at SMU. It's, in my estimation, well-deserved. And
I'm just happy for Rich Phillips.
Right?
I'm just happy that we live in a world where he's going to be calling a game at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
How badass is that?
I know, it's
That's
awesome.
So great.
My love for Texas is deep, like the flavor of smoked brisket, sweet like an ice-cold glass of tea. Every town, every skyline, every back road lined in bluebonnets. Texas is my home. So when the storms hit and the tides rise, my pride keeps me going. My flood insurance helps me stay. I've built a life under this Texas sky, and I'm all in.
Protect your property with flood insurance. Visit floodsmart.gov.
We talked recently about this weird TV thing that I do where I have to finish one show before I can start the next one, and it's a little obsessive compulsive.
Dude,
but,
that's so OCD.
Well, I needed to continue to plow through the Wednesday season, and I'm not sure I'm going back for season 2. It's fine, but finally got through that, solved the crime. We everything's great now at Nevermore, wherever she is, and now it's time to work my way through season 5 of What We Do in the Shadows. Now, on one hand, I feel like people roll their eyes when we talk about our favorite vampire show, and on the other hand, I don't care. It's too good for you not to try. So, and you know, it's been a couple years. We were hot and heavy probably in 2021. And then we've let it rest, but now allow me to reset and say, this is one of my favorite shows of all time. And if you try to give somebody the elevator pitch on What We Do in the Shadows, I don't even know the best way to explain it in 10 seconds, except it's a vampire comedy where these vampires try to assimilate to the current world as
They
best they
live
can.
in Staten Island.
Yes.
And it's mockumentary Office style.
Yes. And it's some of the best stuff I've ever seen. Early in the series, it was very similar or simple concepts like how would vampires answer emails and things of that nature, and the Office type environment, and just all
going to a city council meeting.
Yeah, they're really. You know, you could definitely see guys with a case of beer in the writer's room just trying to make each other laugh. And it's got progressively more insane with each season. And I think season 5, where we currently are, is probably the most insane yet. I don't know where they go from here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably got another season or 2 left in it. But I think it's a lot like Seinfeld. The origin of Seinfeld, it was pretty simple what they were doing and what they were trying to do, but once the characters got fully fleshed out, it literally became insane. And the difference between season 1 of Seinfeld and season 5 is so noticeable. Like, it's not even the same show. And this is, but it's not. It's more insane, but to me, this is the best season they've had. This is the funniest show on TV, I'm convinced. I don't even know if it's close.
Funnier than Schitt's Creek?
I never saw Schitt's Creek. Let it go.
Well, it's a top 5 show, bro.
Of all time.
Again, I was quoting Humans.
All right, so I went on a bit of a bender myself with What We Do in the Shadows this weekend and consumed, I want to say 4 episodes, but 2 really stuck out to me as we've got to get people on board with this insanity. The 3rd episode of season 5, and you can see this on Hulu or FX, and I'm not even sure what the difference is, to be honest with you, was called Pride Parade for what you might assume obvious reasons are. And this one was absolutely ridiculous on every level because Guillermo is beginning to transform into a vampire. And
Guillermo is Nandor's familiar, his human servant, who happens to be a descendant of the Van Helsings, so he's a vampire killer, but he desperately wants to be a vampire.
Yes, and so they start talking about vampiric traits, and they decide to test some of the myths, such as vampires counting rice, an increased jump on their 3rd. Basically, they do the triple jump. And flying to outer space, which Nandor then hooks up a couple GoPros and tries to fly into space. It's level upon level. I believe this is also when Nadja switches bodies with Nadja Dal, who has broken legs but has never had relations with a man, and now she is she's doing speed dating to try to find her first mate, and it's so ridiculous, but yet so many laugh out loud moments that are going on, including at the end at the Pride Parade where they're singing "It's Raining Men," and of course Nandor crashes back to Earth naked.
Right. It's brilliant.
Because his clothes burned up on re-entry.
Yeah. That's right. So then the fourth episode is more of Colin Robinson, the energy vampire, trying to run for comptroller, which, of course, requires all of us to figure out what comptrollers actually do. And that was quite good. Any episode built around Colin Robinson certainly gets my stamp of approval. But of the three that I watched this weekend, that one was probably a half step below, because by the time we get to the fifth episode, I'm kind of howling the whole time.
Well, this is we told you. We tipped you off to this one.
Yes.
That this was, I don't know if it's the opus of the entire show, but I'm sure there's certain ones that you can go back and look at, like the ones when to me, the one they went to Vegas, or I can't remember which casino they were at. No, not Vegas, whatever.
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, yeah. That was great, but for me, this was the best episode they've done.
Yeah, so this one, basically we've had a water main break in Staten Island in their neighborhood. And so we have Channel 8 News is on the scene, and they're attempting to broadcast to all the folks in New York City what's going on in the Staten Island neighborhood, where there are now floods everywhere, water main, chaos, and we have a live shot, and the lady doing the live shot needs somebody from the neighborhood to join her and offer her insight on the experience. And I wanted to share with you this delightful moment where for about 90 seconds, Nandor, who is probably the main vampire, but also easily the dumbest vampire, and he's participating in the live shot. Okay, yeah. So here we go.
Now, I am here with a local resident who has been watching the situation closely. His name is Nandor.
Nandor the Relentless.
Nandor De Laurentiis. Now, Nandor, you live in this neighborhood, correct?
Yes, that's right, Joy, and I do. In that house just over there. With my friends. It's fun.
And as I understand, you were on the street when the water main broke. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I can, Joanna. I was going for my evening stroll, which I do for my mental health as well as for my physical health. And then all of a sudden, crash! Boost! Water, it shoots into the air and then like all over the street.
Now, Nandor, have you seen an incident in this area like this before?
Not since the Great Flood in 1892, Joanna. That was a big boy.
1892.
Oh, silly me, not 1892. 1992.
Yeah, I was going to say 1892. Give me this guy.
Of course, the gag here is he's a vampire and he's lived in Staten Island for centuries. But, of course, on a live shot, if you tell people that, then they're going to find out you're a vampire.
And the jig is up.
Which we don't want everyone to know.
Right.
We want them to think we're just human people.
Right.
So,
even though he's dressed like a 17th century European creep.
He's definitely dressed like a vampire who probably was there in the 1800s.
I was going to say 1892. Give me this guy's skincare secrets.
Because 1892 was a year that was not in my human lifespan, but 1992 most definitely was. It's 2023 now, and it was 1992 then. And I've been living in Staten Island for many centuries.
Many centuries. Well, it looks like we have discovered the secret to eternal life. Now, I do have a... Well... Ted and Lisa, I will be here on the ground monitoring the situation as it develops. Back to you.
And Nandor is running away, terrified that he's now given away his secret accidentally. And he runs back to the house because, yes, now they know that he's a vampire and he lives with other vampires. And now they're all convinced that the authorities are going to try to basically do what they do in all the horror movies. When they find a vampire, everybody grabs torches.
They run them out of town.
And we have to run them out of town or kill them.
Yeah.
And so now the vampires are barricading the house and setting booby traps everywhere.
Like within seconds.
Because the final...
and Laszlo starts looking for a sack that would be big enough to kidnap Joanna the reporter.
Right.
Yes. So their way out of this mess is if they can get to the news people, then they can hypnotize them and make them forget that any of this happened. But now, wait a minute, it's a live shot, so now we need to hypnotize all of New York City. and it's just so dumb and
but
yet
it's
so awesome.
They're the dumbest people on the planet, but they're the funniest people on the planet. The writing is genius. It's Taika Waititi, who did Jojo Rabbit.
It's so good.
It's so incredibly out there funny. And we had... I already forgot his name, whatever Nandor's real name is.
Kayvon Novak.
Yeah.
A lot on Gil and his life and his legacy, which is significant.
Oh, my Lord, yeah. Didn't he kind of start analytics in a way?
In a way with the Cowboys
Yeah.
computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he helped create the scouting combine. I mean, there's a lot
of innovation.
You talk about the innovation between Tex, Tom, and Gil, what they started in NFL history. It's absolutely remarkable. So very sad, the passing of Gil Brandt this morning at the age of 91. Our next guest actually worked with Gil and probably has a little bit of insight into just how influential Gil Brandt was in NFL history. His name is Bob Angelo. He was a 43-year veteran of NFL films, working as a cinematographer and producer, and he's got a new book out called The NFL Off Camera. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing fine, and yes, the Gil Brandt news just breaking, and I know you did work with Gil and met him in the 70s. What was it like to work with him, and what did you learn from him?
Well, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Gil Brandt because the one and only individual Emmy for being a producer that I won in my career involved Gil Brandt in a piece that we did in Dallas when he was 80 years old. But before we talk about that, my first encounter with him was in the late 1970s. I was producing a segment for Grandstand on NBC, and Donna DeVerona and I and a crew went to Gil's office to talk to him about biorhythms. Now, I'd learned from someone that Gil was trying to factor biorhythms into believe it or not, he was trying to sell it to Tom Landry at the time. I don't know how far he got with that, but Gil was always looking for that winning edge. As you mentioned in leading up to my coming on the air with you guys, he was a visionary. Gil Brandt, his scouting system and the way Gil used computers to make the scouting system something really, truly beneficial to Dallas's success was one of the reasons that the Cowboys won so many games every season, and I think they still hold the record for the most consecutive winning seasons in NFL history.
Yep.
And that was all under Tex Schramm, Tom Landry, and Gil Brandt. I love just the way he chewed his gum. He expended so much energy just chewing his gum. It's just fun to be in his presence. But we talked about biorhythms, and of course, science has kind of discredited that as the years have gone on. But Gil was always looking for that, what's another way I can help Coach Landry win football games? And, of course, the single best way that he did that was understanding how to scout college talent, how to understanding that it was important to go to the black universities and bring players into the NFL, and always keeping his eyes open for a bargain. For example, Roger Staubach. He's got 5 years of military service, but when he's done in the military, he'll still be a good quarterback, won't he? And they signed him. Late in life, I did a piece with Gil, and we won an Emmy Award for it. And it was his wife was involved in a way. She was on the periphery of these events. But when JFK was assassinated, she was one of the last people to shake JFK's hand right before the car turned the corner and headed toward the school book depository.
Wow.
But Gil and I did that piece, and we got up to about take 22 before he finally got it. It was a Steadicam shot in front of the grassy knoll, but when he did get it, I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be an exceptional segment. And it was. It won an Emmy, and I never did share it with Gil because I received it. I'm not sure that Gil got one, although he might have because at the time he was working for NFL Network. But fond memories of Gil Brandt.
Very interesting. Bob Angelo with us. The new book is The NFL Off Camera. Worked for more than 40 years, NFL Films, cinematographer and producer, and you've worked with a ton of Cowboys and former Cowboys, and you write about them in the book, including Bill Parcells, who wasn't one of your favorites necessarily. Why was that?
Well, Bill was hard on NFL Films cameramen. Bill was one of those guys who thought cameras were a distraction. Keep these cameras away from my bench area. Keep these cameras out of my locker room. In the late 1990s, the NFL Owners Committee, the NFL Owners Broadcast Committee, decided NFL Films does have the right to use boom microphones in bench areas. But by then, Bill was not as cantankerous as he was when he was younger. I respect Bill Parcells. I respect him immensely. He was just tough on us. He would attack our positions, threaten us, menace us, intimidate us. Bill was like that. I remember before I went to do a segment with Parcells in New England when he was coaching the Patriots, Phil Simms was walking down the hallway, knocked on my door. I didn't know Phil that well, but he said, "You're the guy who's going to be working around Bill for the next 2 weeks. Super Bowl Diaries, I believe, is the project." I said, "Yes." He said, "Let me tell you something. Don't let him intimidate you. If he does, he owns you." Well, on Wednesday of the week, I was up in New England. Sorry, I'm not talking about the Cowboys part of it.
Oh, that's okay.
Bill, on Wednesday after the team meeting, came out in the hall, and he said to me, "You are not allowed to work with my players once we go to New Orleans." And I said, "Coach, that's not what you promised." And Bill, we went nose to nose. And he basically said, "What are you trying to do, wreck my football team?" And I said, "That is not what you promised. I need access to them. Otherwise, this whole show falls apart." And he promised Steve Sable this. He looked at me. He walked off. He went into the media room, came out with the two players involved, and said, "Remember what I said about you can't be near the media in New Orleans? Well, this guy's an exception. You can do what he asks you to do." And he looked at me, gave me that, okay, you won that battle, dude, and walked away. But when I saw him outside the Superdome that week, he stopped, shook my hand, and said, "Hey, show's coming out pretty well for you, isn't it?" I said, "Yes, it is, Coach. Thanks."
Oh, that's great. That's great. You also directed the first 2 seasons of Hard Knocks. That second one involved the Cowboys. When you watch it today, how has the show changed? Has it changed for the better, for the worse?
For the better. The show is beautifully directed, and it excels in post-production. The show that I did with the Ravens, and not quite as much with the Cowboys, but the 2 shows that I did were raw, if you know what I mean. The post-production now is just perfect on these things. The use of music, the pacing, all the things that the editors do as they're putting the final show together. But I do have some memories. I was just thinking about that this morning of that show with the Cowboys. Dave Campo was the head coach, and Quincy Carter was the incumbent quarterback. But before the season, the Cowboys acquired Chad Hutchinson. And I just remember watching this quarterback battle transpire as I was shooting, and Bruce Coslett was caught in the middle of it. And Bruce was frustrated as hell with Quincy Carter. He just couldn't seem to get that guy's attention, whereas Chad was, willing to learn, willing to try things. And I thought to myself, oh, boy, Dave Campo, this is going to be a long season. And sure enough, it was a 5-11 season.
Yep.
And but as Rich Dalrymple said to me, hey, it's free publicity for 5 weeks. Why not?
That's right. And in the book, you write about the day that you spent with Emmett, start to finish, the day he broke the all-time rushing record. What was that experience like?
One of my fondest memories. I met Emmett at the DFW Marriott. He said, "You ready?" Yes, sir. I was shooting. I rode in his car with him en route to the stadium. And, of course, gatekeepers and, people who were allowing his car to pass recognized him, and I'm shooting all of this, all the well-wishers. And I really felt part of it. Like, okay, Emmett, you're just about to break the as football records go, the all-time rushing record, the total rushing yards record, at the time was right up there with Babe Ruth's 714 home runs.
Yep.
And it was just to be part of that. Wow. I'd earned Emmitt's respect from early on when, he was a rookie and I'd shove my wide-angle lens in his face in pregame, and he'd kind of look at me, size me up, and then he'd say something. And as he got older, he became much more discreet in his comments. But Emmitt was one of my favorite people simply because of an event I witnessed in person. When the Cowboys went to play the Giants, I believe it was the 1993 Cowboys team, but they went to the Meadowlands to play the Giants for the right to go to the Super Bowl. And Emmitt got tackled hard, landed on his shoulder, and was walking off the field. I was standing on the sidelines as he walked right toward me, and he was wincing, and he was in major discomfort. Of course, some still photographer stood up in front of me right as he got to the sideline. I felt like bashing him in the back of the head with my lens, but I didn't. Emmitt sat down on the bench, and I thought, oh, boy. And I was a Cowboys fan. I liked Jimmy Johnson. I liked the team that those two men, Jimmy and Jerry, built, and I thought this might be it. I don't know that they can win without Emmitt in the second half, and it didn't appear as if he was going to.
Let's open the studio door and welcome in our memorabilia expert, Shorty DeFazio. Hi, Shorty.
What's going on there, guys? My two favorite muses up here. Hey.
We always like to give you a chance to plug your place.
Yeah. First of all, I was a bit offended that you guys did a show from the Heritage Auction Galleries, why did you guys ever do a show from up in my shop, eh?
You never invited us.
Come on, you need to come up there. It's called Hey, That's an Unusual Item. It's a store up there in the Northeast.
Where exactly? New York
it's
City?
Up there in the Maine to Maryland corridor, that area there. Yeah, it's one of those classic east of the Rockies stores. To get there, imagine you're going up the Mississippi, all right?
You hang a right.
Yeah, hang a right at St. Louis, and then just kind of keep going up that northeast way.
And we can't miss it.
Yeah, you know where the Washington, D.C., Quebec area is? Up in that area.
I've never heard it described as that.
That's way too general.
Yeah, so I brought some unusual items for you here.
Okay.
Get them out of his bag.
It's good to have you in town.
Yeah, thank you there, George. Appreciate that. How about this? A Mickey Mantle rookie card.
Whoa,
all right,
wow.
This is the signature item of this auction that I got going on here. Yeah, it's a Mickey Mantle rookie card. Now, it does have a beard and Fu Manchu mustache drawn on it, but with a vintage Bic pen.
Okay.
All right, so that's good. But here's the deal, though. It was drawn by the Commerce Comet himself.
He defaced his own card.
He defaced his own rookie card. So see it, you would think it would grade out, like at a 1 because of the Fu Manchu and the beard.
Right.
But since it was drawn by Mickey Mantle himself, it goes back up to an 8 or so.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and then you got to bump it back up to a 9.1 because it was drawn during the season he had 60 homers.
Wow.
So that's another thing. It's a 9.1 Mantle rookie card.
So many layers to that one. I'm not sure I want to bid on that.
This has been estimated by our team to go from $3 million to $4 million, somewhere in there.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's in yen, so that's about 20,000 USD.
Okay, that's still pretty cool.
And that's a USD stable coin. That's not dollars. That's the stable coin pegged to the U.S. dollar.
So many layers to that one. I think I'll pass.
All right, so, hey, any Cowboy fans here? Let me hear from you.
Cowboy fans.
Jerry Jones, Bravo Eugenia prototype mock-up. This is when they were building it and designing it. It's a 16-to-1 model.
Okay.
All right, but I got the actual one. You can even look in there. You can see inside there. You can see the daycare they made for Jerry Jr.
Sure enough.
There's Charlotte's costume room down here, down in the galley.
Yeah.
And there's Gene's modern art and jewelry room. You can see that. It takes up the lion's share of the front of the ship there. And then Jerry Jones Sports-Free Sports Cave. It's an interesting item, but it's his war room he's got built in there. You can see it all. This Bravo Eugenia, it can't float. So if you wanted to actually take this out on Texoma or Louisville or White Rock Lake,
where?
White Rock Lake. This is going to go for $1,000. We feel very sure about that. It grades out at a 9.2.
That's a 9.2.
Those get graded?
Yeah. All right. Then here, you'll like this, George. I thought about you. This is nice framed and everything like this. This is a recent picture, the most recent picture, in fact, of the ghost of Al Davis. He appeared at AT&T Stadium on Saturday.
Right.
And it was his photo was taken. He was visiting with Jerry Jones at the time. You can see that.
So she was right.
Yes, this was captioned by the same photographer that did that Patterson Bigfoot film. The director.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I love that.
A little suspicious.
Yeah, and his grandfather took that picture of the Loch Ness Monster. You guys
The Loch Ness Monster?
The
What?
What? That's $1,500. We're expecting that to go for there.
Okay, it's not bad.
And George, everyone's always that the George Brett pine tar bat.
Yeah,
that's in the hall. That's it's a famous piece of memorabilia associated with potential cheating in sports.
Sure.
So I have here. This is also an item that was a center of controversy in a sport recently. This is the vibrating bee plug worn by chess grandmaster Hans Niemann.
You actually have it?
Yeah, we have it. We bought it immediately. When it came up, we bought it out of a private sale, and because we knew that this would go for a lot. Because chess is getting more and more popular in everybody's world.
Right.
Everybody's world.
Yep.
So we went ahead and bought it, and we got it authenticated by Jose Altuve of the Astros.
Another cheater.
Yeah. He said he had experience with vibrating bee plugs. So
he used one too.
He could authenticate this. So we're expecting this to go for about 10,000 yen.
Okay.
Wow.
Yen.
Yeah. Once again, and how about this? This is something that's affordable for everybody. Okay. This is called the Bruce Bochy Fragrance Pack.
Okay.
And inside it's actually a parfum that that is redolent of half-smoked cigar. There are hints of a ladle of beef stock and a fistful of sandalwood shavings. So you too can smell like the Ranger skipper.
Awesome.
For $60.
I'm in.
Yeah. How about this? A Trey Lance San Francisco 49ers jersey. Game 1, absolutely mint condition. Not a spot on this thing.
Yeah, he didn't play much.
Yeah, not a spot on it. It's
kind of
$400.
Okay.
$400 there. All right, let's about this for you, Craig. This is it.
And we've actually done at least one, and if not two, Trey Lance 49ers segments in the last 2 weeks. I've been really interested in Trey Lance's performances, and I believe I told you they are bad. And at no point through any of that did I expect the Cowboys were going to swoop in there and make it a local story. I was just doing it because it's fascinating as heck that one of the two teams in front of the Cowboys, at least according to the odds makers, is a team that appears to have a very shaky quarterback position, and this is a big reason as to why. And as opposed to any more development with Trey Lance, they are now ready to eject him into the sun and say, we will send him anywhere just so he's no longer in our lives.
Our bad. We made a terrible decision on draft day to give away about 3 years worth of capital.
A fireable offense for anyone else.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We're going to own it, we're going to eat it, and move on. And we don't care. And I love that. I love the fact that they're just like, yeah, what do you guys want? 4? Okay. Yeah, just get him. Let's move on. Our bad. We made the mistake. It's not working. Now, on the flip side of it, I guess I just don't understand the why here.
Well, I've been working on that all weekend, and I'm not sure I'm any closer to the answer. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure I get this at all.
None of it makes sense.
To me, the two ways that this works out for the Cowboys, I read your Substack, Bob, on this, and I also read Machoda's thing on the
Athletic,
the site that shall not be named.
Oh, that's fine. We're
and both of you guys covered it really nicely. And looking at, as you said, how the timelines line up and how this year is basically a wash for Trey Lance. You're going to have to burn a roster spot for him, but he doesn't know the offense, and he's been terrible up to this point, and he just has no experience. He's not your QB2. He's your QB3, and you're going to give him some scout team reps or whatever. You're going to try and get him up to speed, but then the real education begins in OTAs in the spring.
Right.
So you basically have one season to see what he can do in your system.
Yes, and also during the spring, you will refuse his fifth-year option because you're not going to pay $25 million for that.
Right. So at the end of 2024, when he has the opportunity to walk, the only way I can see this working out for the Cowboys is, one, he decides to give you a discount with assurances that he is your number 2 and perhaps your QB1 in waiting.
Okay.
However long it takes for Dak to finish his career here. Or, I guess more likely is that they rehab his value to the point where you can get better than a fourth back.
How do you do that? How do you rehab a guy's value who is third string on his team, and the two guys that he had to beat out, one was Mr. Irrelevant, granted good year last year.
But coming off a massive injury.
Yeah. 2 is a guy that is now officially an NFL journeyman. Granted, again, same pedigree as Trey Lance as far as where he's picked and all that. But, I mean, just kind of a guy now. You couldn't beat those two guys out. And the team that spent multiple first-round draft picks on you is just like, get him out.
It does seem weird that it was a fourth. Like,
waiter, take this away.
Was there anybody else lining up offering a fourth?
Well, no.
Could you have gotten him for a fifth or a sixth?
The scuttlebutt is several teams were in for a fifth.
Okay, so you had to outbid somebody.
Yes, and then the other scuttlebutt, which is probably factual, is that Jerry did this without Mike McCarthy's knowledge. Is that who's reporting that?
He just called a grandson.
Like Mike McCarthy found out when Schefter reported it or something?
Yeah, I think he's pretty much...
Do you know who put that out there? I'm just curious.
I don't know if I saw exactly who, but he's kind of, in answering questions about it, he's kind of confirmed that.
See, my hope would be that, like with Brian Schottenheimer, who, I believe this came up in the Steven interview on the broadcast on Saturday night, is that Schotty was in Jacksonville when they were preparing for the 2021 draft, and the drafting of Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville ended up being the 1-1, and the belief there is that Schotty did a ton of work on Trey Lance and said this would be great. That was at least Bill Jones's theory, which makes sense that, yeah, okay. I mean, McCarthy was in the NFL. I suppose he probably did his Trey Lance work, and I guess they put a second-round grade on Trey Lance, which, by the way, is about what I did. You know, I remember thinking, this guy is not even close to Trevor Lawrence. He's not even close to Justin Fields, and in my opinion, I would take Zach Wilson in front of him, but I would probably take this guy over Mac Jones, but nowhere near the top 3 in the draft, so whatever. But from a Cowboys standpoint, when you do try to figure it out, like Dave is right, that's probably the theory, and I suppose he could go nuts and win the QB2 job going into 24, have a fantastic preseason, because we know Dak will never take a preseason snap again. And, you know, that might go back to Romo getting hurt in a preseason game in 2016. So Trey Lance will have the full stage, let's say, in 2024, and maybe, just maybe, if he has an on-fire preseason, but he's your QB2, so are you going to trade him for something like next Labor Day?
Dude,
you need him to.
No matter how you add this up, it doesn't make sense.
No, so if he leaves at the end of 2024, now who's going to put a ton of money on him? But if it's over a certain threshold, then you start talking about compensatory picks back, and you probably get a fourth back, maybe a third if someone throws a ton of money at him. But who's going to do that? So I don't understand this. And we're not even getting into the fact that he's not good.
Exactly.
Okay, yes, that is a very important part of this. But the one thing that, and I, as I was thinking about it, the one thing that does make sense from my point of view is that for once, the Cowboys and Jerry Jones are making a decision that is not based on the best possible outcome. So this is a insurance policy if Dak's career ends earlier, if Dak has a catastrophic injury next year.
But
obviously this year he's not going to be ready.
So your backup to a disastrous situation is a guy that's third string. that can't beat out Mr. Irrelevant and Sam Darnold.
Well, you're going to put time and equity into him to try and build him back up. I'm saying that he had a second round to first round grade from a lot of people. He has raw physical tools.
He has unbelievable physical tools.
You believe that you can bring him along and make him a serviceable NFL quarterback, if not a starter. I'm saying that it is an insurance policy on the unlikely event that Dak cannot finish out his current contract or go well into his next contract.
Yeah, they'll go by that time. They're not going to go with Trey Lance. Like if it's Trey Lance or the rest of the quarterbacks in the United States of America, the answer is going to be somebody else.
And I've even heard the theory about Dak, and I think this is important because people seem to miss this. A lot of people with the theory this weekend that this tells us actually what the Cowboys think about Dak Prescott, and in my opinion, that could not be further from the truth, let alone what Steven said on TV, which is the exact same thing. We have every intention of getting this Dak contract extension done, and here's why. Dak is on the books next season. If you don't know, that's okay. We keep track of this, but if you don't know, Dak is on the books next season for $59.5 million. It is an enormous cap hit. I think it's the biggest one in the NFL now that Aaron Rodgers is no longer on the books for like $100 million next year. He redid his deal, and Dak will have to redo his. The difference is, of course, that Dak only has 1 year left on his deal. So the only way to bring that $60 million down is to cost average it out with an extension. And the extension could, because the quarterback market continues to rise, could actually go up per year from $40 million to, let's say, $45. Let's say perhaps even, I suppose he could ask for $50, given how many guys are at $50 million a year now.
Sure.
And so the number continues to go up. And here's the other thing. He has a no-trade clause. Many people don't have this in the NFL. In fact, very few do. But Dak Prescott's one of them. Because I suppose when you're getting a big contract, you just tell your agent, ask for everything.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe they'll say yes. So he has a no-trade clause, and he has a $60 million cap number next year. So the only way you get rid of Dak, the only way, is if you don't extend him and you allow him to occupy $60 million next season. And what that would do on your cap probably is it would cost you like 3 starters that you have to cut because you have to get underneath the cap. There's really no way to do it without restructuring Dak, and it could possibly
One of us takes it on the chin. There are no more Redskins. Best friends till the end. It's not gambling, that's a sin. Now it's time to have some picks with friends. It is time to have some picks with friends.
It is that time. The very first edition of Picks with Friends. It's Donovan. It's Matt McLaren. Let's introduce the rest of the crew. In studio, from the 1 to 3 program, here's David Mino.
Whoa! Thank you. Thank you for the applause. Did you guys hear about Gil Brandt?
Yeah, we did. Thank you. Thank you for...
Just letting you know.
Thank you. Not here, but included in this segment, we have one Corby Davidson from the Hardline. Corby, do you read me?
The defending loser is in the house.
I know he fell into a well.
It's in the bathroom.
Bob, does it sound weird?
No, it doesn't sound
good.
good.
That's okay. We're fine.
It could be worse.
Yes.
There's Bob Stern from the Hardline. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to give you your money back because you told me to mention you first from the Hardline and not Corby. I'm sorry.
Do I sound like I'm in the bathroom?
No,
you
sound great.
Sound like you're in the living room.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Great.
I mean, Corby sounds like he's locked in a dungeon somewhere.
You do sound like you're in the hole. You did something wrong in the cafeteria, and now you're serving out a sentence.
Part of losing last year is he has to do picks this year in a well.
And on the phone, we are joined by Moose.
Yeah!
George Dunham was not feeling very well, but he mustered up enough strength to be on Picks with Friends. Hello, Moose.
Man, even if I was on my deathbed, I would come up with enough strength to be on Picks with Friends.
Yeah!
We love it. We love it. This is the crew.
Whoa.
These are the friends that will pick friends throughout the entire season. 150 games will determine who wins and who loses picks with friends.
Give me TCU, and I'll give the points.
Well, no, we're not picking games this week.
Triple play.
We're going to start next week. So everybody can, pick your games that you were going to pick this week to see how you're going to do for the rest of the season.
I already went on.
I would say so we can actually enjoy one weekend of football.
Yes. To see how you do, and then we will start officially next week. But
You're right. This does kind of ruin football, doesn't it?
It so ruins. It's impossible to ruin football, but we managed to do it here.
No, we don't. It makes it so much better.
Did I move
so
out of the
much
well? Does it sound better? Sure, it still sound like I'm in a well.
Maybe
that sounds a little better.
You're on
He told him he could get out of his
Daddy
well.
says you sound better.
You're on the 3rd floor of the well, not the 10th floor.
All right. I got a big house,
Yeah,
we know.
How about you go to the side yard to see if you get better reception out there?
Try the West Wing.
Go to the guest house.
It's all those hardwood marble polished floors.
You know
They
what?
do
The
echo.
tennis courts have this little area where we just put Wi-Fi out there, so we run out there real quick.
All right. We need to decide a punishment because last year the punishment for losing picks with friends. The Super Bowl was in Phoenix. The loser had to ride a Greyhound bus from Dallas to Phoenix for the Super Bowl. It was very exciting. Tie at the very end. We had to go to overtime in picks with friends. Corby loses. Corby was on the bus. Are you still okay? You still have the hoodie?
The hoodie is in Phoenix.
He left it at the bus station.
It's in the Hall of Fame, the Greyhound Hall of Fame out there.
I promised. I gave a hug to Dominic Robinson, who was gracious enough to pick me up at the bus station in Phoenix. And the minute I hugged him, I said, "You're the last person that will ever touch this hoodie," and it was gone.
All right, so that was the punishment last year. Corby loses. I don't even remember who won.
Who could
That
say?
would be me.
No, I don't remember at all. Like, no one.
That'd be me.
I think we were all winners, and then Corby's the one that lost.
There was one picker who was better than them all. That was me.
Okay, all right.
True champion.
Because you're sick, I'll let you have it, but I don't remember it being that way.
I could be having a fever dream. I don't know.
Let's decide a punishment because we do need one, and no idea is a bad idea. So if anyone has anything, let's throw it out and discuss it. Let's see if we can figure something out today.
Bunky.
All right.
I do have
Yeah, we're
one.
adopting a monkey.
All right,
What is
Snake?
it? Speak.
I do have one. So the Super Bowl's in Las Vegas, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Bob and I were just there, and Davey. We were up there. Yeah, we partied pretty hard.
Bunch of
But
coke.
Bob, if you remember, one of the weirdest things that we did was take about a 10:30 p.m. trip down Fremont Street.
Yes.
And Fremont Street is Donovan, you would know too.
Bit
it's that
capital
area,
of the world.
Yeah, it's that area of downtown Las Vegas, so like old Las Vegas, where it's covered in LED lights for about a half mile. And it's unbelievable. But within that walk down through there were multiple stages, like 80s bands were playing and random country bands, like the further you would get. And they were like spaced out on one side or the other. The width of it is, the length of it, let's say a half mile. The width of it is, I don't even know, but fifth of the mile. It's huge. It's a huge space. But as you're walking, there are these little circles all over the place. And Bob, I don't know if you remember the performers.
I do.
That were doing street bits.
A little
they were
concerned
busking.
with what your suggestion is going to be here, but go on.
Yeah, they were busking essentially, and they were in these they had these cordoned off circles that would fit 2 or 3 people in there, and they were doing mime acts and little guitar acts and juggling and sex acts. I believe that was the one that we noticed the most. But my idea is for the loser or losers. This would take open your mind a little bit to have to get in that circle. And from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with a couple hours off in the middle, you have to perform.
That'd be awesome.
A street performance in Vegas.
PM.
How are we going to do the show?
Can you
if we're
take
doing
I
hours?
can't stop thinking about the sex acts. What if there's just one person that loses?
You
could simulate it.
Well, yeah.
Just solo?
I didn't do my show, so you have to, we'll go down there intermittently. And
you can get whatever tips
breaks,
people give
obviously.
you get to keep.
Las Vegas street performance.
Just a tip.
Down.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
I remember the one time I went down there, that was the first time I saw a dude with a sign that said, "Move me and I'll stay."
Makes sense because he would.
Yeah.
And people would pay and just try to move him in a position, and he'd just stay there until the next person put a buck in there, and he moved to that position and just stuck around. It was
It's like you
really
paint
weird.
yourself silver and you do the robot thing. Yeah.
Dude, I'd be doing the robot for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You'd get so good at the robot.
What a terrible! You would get
doing the gritty.
No money.
I disagree.
Yeah, and look, I just threw that out there doing it 9 to 5. We can make it whatever time. It could be the duration of whoever loses show or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I was thinking of it last night and how uncomfortably awkward it all was to see, and it seemed like that would be right up our alley.
Okay.
Who was the Asian guy in Hot Rod?
The dance guy?
Corby, are you offended?
Yeah, don't you just have to dance like him for 8 hours in one of those circles?
Yeah. Right.
To King of Hearts or whatever that was.
So I have an idea.
You're throwing 1,000 pieces of paper.
Bob has
Go
one.
ahead.
So my idea is I like the thought of the biggest trophy we can find. And if it's 6 feet tall, it may not be big enough. We need an obnoxious trophy for this person. And then every time, let's say, 100 days between the Super Bowl and the draft or something like that. But for 100 days, the loser has to, anytime he's working at the ticket, from the time he reports in the morning till the time he's done at night, and any road shows or any meetings or anything, he has to have that trophy with him at all times. So you're just...
Ticket stock.
It's got to be able to fit in a car, though, right? Because we're
okay. Let's get in a car, but then he's got to stand next to it in the elevator.
Okay,
he's got to walk down the hall with it.
What a thrashing that is!
Every day until the draft.
So from the Super Bowl to the draft.
Yeah.
Are these only working hours, or is this on the
weekends?
weekends?
When you're at the ticket, or when you're representing the ticket on site, wherever, so people can come have their picture made with the loser and his trophy for that entire springtime. So it includes everybody, and yes, ticket stock would be wonderful. So it's all there.
Everywhere you go, you're just hauling that thing with you.
Yes, if you perform a number at ticket stock, it has to join you on stage.
Okay, all right.
Okay. All right, like that.
I think it needs to be something. I think the past 2 Picks with Friends payoffs have been the best because it's something that goes on all day on the ticket. George sleeping at the station for 48 hours was great because he's popping on every show. Corby taking the bus to the Super Bowl was great because we got to check in with him. I think it needs to be something like that. And then the reading 50 Shades of Grey was great. It needs to be something where we can check in with the loser whenever we want.
And that was kind of my idea for the street performer, where you could intermittently check in with him, her, it.
And it has to include George. So, George, you have to lose. Your payoffs are the best.
No, they're not. They're terrible. Both of those were terrible.
What if your
the studio thing went bad?
What if your street performance is being on the show from throughout the whole prime time? So you're in Vegas,
just standing in
the circle,
a wireless microphone.
You're talking with headphones and a wireless mic, and you're just doing the show all day long.
Okay, yeah.
But you got to dance when you do it in a crazy outfit.
And you have a bucket in front of you saying, "Hey, I'm on the radio."
I'm a radio star.
Right.
Or it has to be, the loser has to be on, I don't know, predominantly the winner's show, the first place guy's show for it, or whatever. Yeah, I like the idea, though, of being able to check in all day long on the different shows. It was cool to be able to call, all you guys during the bus trip, and so I don't know.
Yeah,
I like that, but I like that theme, like Mino said.
I know.
How about my? Did you like my fart box idea? That the loser had to.
Yeah, the fart follow up.
Of those.
Yeah,
maybe every other person and every other friend at some point during the week gets to follow him and detonate it at the worst possible time. And that could include church. He could go to like church with you.
That'd be awesome.
So Jub has a fart machine payoff.
And you just wanted to erupt during church.
Well, or
Church
somewhere.
sucks.
Corby. So
I know.
Jeez, Corby.
It's got to be a really good one too that just honks really loud.
Everywhere you go. It could be at any time as somebody's in range.
Could be you have to give a speech, and every friend gets to determine what their day is, and that day he gets to haunt you with the.
Man, okay.
How about we have the two losers, whoever finish last and second to last, because last year there were two at the bottom at the end of regulation. What if for 1 week the last place finishers are handcuffed to each other for the entire week?
Oh my
let's
God.
say it's let's say it's
go home with each other.
Yeah, no. Let's say you get like 6 feet. So if you're going to the bathroom,
So
if
like
you
a
have to
chain?
shower, you have like a 6-foot chain
Man,
with
that'd
the
be
two
interesting.
losers, and so you're spending the entire week, Monday through Friday, with each other.
God, just doing 24 hours.
Yeah,
would
1
suck.
week.
You'd have to stay in a hotel. You're not
Fine.
going home.
Why
Dude,
not?
So I gotta come
it would
up
be
and do the
one
hard
day.
line with Corby
1
every
day.
day?
Yeah, 1 day would be just a colossal.
Say 2 days. You have to spend a night. Spend 2 nights together.
Well, do you
Okay,
get the
that
pick
is
which hand?
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
if you have to because you have to
that'd
go.
be-
So
Mino.
you guys are 6
Mino,
feet apart
if
right
we
now.
had to do it, I'm telling you right now, if we had to do that 6A to 7P, someone would lose their mind.
Well, then don't lose.
1 day. Well, I know.
I don't wanna
know, but
lose
I mean,
either. I don't
one
wanna do
day-
it.
Strangle the
You'd
other
have
guy
to
with
be able
the
to
chain.
uncuff to get it, like when you're going to the bathroom and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's why you're 6 feet apart.
Well, even
Somebody's
then-
standing on
Yeah,
the
but
other
you
side.
need
You're
your
not
other
looking
hand.
at them.
You need your other
You're
hand
not
to
gonna
get
be
it
able to
out.
Close the door all the way.
As
Well,
George-
your hands aren't. It's just a 6-foot chain.
like
Like
when
around
you're in
the
the
waist?
line. Yeah, like you're in the line. And
Sure, it
between the
could be the
wrists.
waist, wrist.
Okay.
Could be a bungee cable.
Well, you need your hands free so you can do things.
A set of
And then one guy
handcuffs
has
with
to
a
take a
long
lap.
chain.
What?
No.
One guy takes a laxative.
I'm talking about going to the bathroom.
Then McLaren had one idea off air
Yeah,
is that
mine-
you have to wear a shirt for a week, but the
Nipples are cut out. So everywhere you go for an entire week, your nipples are exposed because the nipples are cut out of your shirt everywhere.
Nip, nip.
So do we get like 5 shirts that have nipples?
Yeah,
cut
we
out?
can-
Yeah,
we
or is
just
it
go
the same
by-
shirt?
just a
Yeah,
regular
like-
plain
yeah,
T-shirt. you don't
regular
have to
plain
spend a lot of
T-shirt.
money on it, but you have to cut the
But
nipples
everywhere
out.
you go, everywhere, once you everywhere, you're just the hole with the nipples cut out. You wear that shirt everywhere you go.
Wear nippleless
Oh my
shirt for a week.
All right.
while you're tied to someone else.
Oh, God, what is
Two
you with the
nipples.
handcuffs? Good Lord.
I mean, the worst is to tie to somebody else. That's just.
All right.
mean, the
Yeah, but you can
bathroom-
pop on the other shows. You're with them while they're in studio. You're just kind of sitting there.
That would be okay, but the problem is when you have to go to the bathroom, or what if
You can figure it out. You don't have to be in the stall with them.
Because I go pee like 15 times a day.
Or you can just not look at them. You can be in the stall and just turn around.
Going to be a part of a conference call with ACC presidents, but they canceled that on Monday out of respect for what happened on the campus at North Carolina and that shooting. It has not yet been rescheduled, but it's going to happen, and the meat of that conference call was going to be about those 3 schools joining the ACC. By the way, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and other leaders from other conferences are going to be here today in Dallas. The college football playoff meetings going on here in the Metroplex. So at some point, this call is going to happen, and by all accounts, it sounds like SMU has a new conference, the ACC. It's not official yet, not official for Cal or Stanford either. But as we had the story a week or two ago, those 3 schools in particular had been enlisting big guns to help lobby on their behalf. And we heard that Stanford had gotten former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to make calls on behalf of their program, and SMU had gotten former President George W. Bush to make calls on their behalf. And this may be working. That's part of it, but also part of it is that these three schools are willing to join the ACC at a cut rate. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, reports today, and I love how he starts this because it does take you back 40 years. He starts his column by saying the wild spending of aggressive, wealthy SMU football boosters once killed the program via the death penalty. That was in the late 80s when local businessmen kept buying talented recruits, but now those businessmen are back, a new generation at least, trying to save the program before a final churn of conference realignment leaves the prideful Mustangs behind forever. And this time it could cost $200 million. So SMU right now is in the American Athletic Conference. They are desperate to get into a Power 5 conference. The Big 12 has always shunned SMU. I'm not exactly sure why, other than maybe they just don't see them as being on par with, say, the four schools that they just took on: BYU, Cincinnati, Central Florida, Houston. It's a reasonable argument you can make that those four schools have all had more or much more success on the football field, the basketball court, than SMU has had. That's a pretty easy argument to make, so I understand that. But then the Big 12 also is taking on these Four Corners schools, which again are bigger in brand and in on-field and on-court success than SMU. I get that too. But SMU has this history with a lot of schools that are in the Big 12. It's regionally right here at the epicenter of the Big 12. And so I've never really understood it unless the history with those Big 12 schools is a negative one. Maybe TCU doesn't want anything to do with SMU. Maybe Texas, before they were leaving for the SEC, just didn't want anything to do with SMU. I don't know. But for whatever reason, the Big 12 has shunned them. So SMU now has very limited options. The SEC, the Big Ten don't want anything to do with SMU. And the Pac-12 is disintegrating. So the ACC is their only option, and the ACC doesn't really want to expand, but it's gotten so crazy in college athletics that if they don't, they're afraid that they're going to lose Clemson and Florida State and maybe North Carolina, maybe Miami, and they can't afford to do that. And I remember when all of this started to shake out a couple of years ago, I heard from a lot of ACC people that said, don't worry, our grant of rights is in place until 2036. Nothing's going to happen. No school's going anywhere. The conference is healthy. But when you look at what that conference is getting in terms of network payouts per school compared to what they're getting in the SEC and the Big Ten and even the Big 12, it pales in comparison. And I said at the time, there is no way those schools like Clemson are going to sit there getting a third of what schools in the SEC are getting and just be happy with that until 2036. Be happy with that for 15 more years? No way. So we've already heard rumblings that some of those schools want to bolt the ACC. So the ACC is having to expand, and the way SMU is apparently going to join is really interesting because they're basically going to join the ACC for free. As they write in Yahoo Sports, SMU could receive an ACC membership offer that calls for the school to receive no media rights revenue for 7 to 9 years. After that, the school would start to collect TV revenue from the conference at a rate that would gradually increase. So in an era where everyone is jumping leagues to get more money, SMU is willing to get no money because the rich alums are willing to cover the loss. Money is not an issue with SMU. And they have figured out its place in the world and its value to the ACC. The conference's deal with ESPN runs through 2036, as I mentioned. If the ACC adds any members, ESPN has to pay the league an additional $24 million per year per expansion team. If SMU was going to get an equal share, then that would be a non-starter since every school would receive less from ESPN. However, by adding SMU for free, the other schools would have $24 million to split amongst themselves. And they say that Cal and Stanford will probably join the ACC at a cut rate, maybe 30%, meaning that ESPN will pay the league $72 million more per year, but the current members will get about $55 million of that. So it's a win-win. Cal, Stanford, and SMU get rescued. They get to stay at Cal and Stanford in a Power 5 conference. SMU really gets rescued. They get to join a Power 5 conference for the first time. And the league members don't have to split that money with them. They'll get more money, in fact, through the ESPN deal. So that sounds like the way it's going to shake out. It's definitely SMU's last chance to become a big player in big-time college football. And they are, if you drive by the stadium, they're expanding that on the south end. They went in big on an NIL deal that assured each player about $36,000 a year. That's a base deal for each player, and the star players are going to get a lot more. I see this really helping SMU short term. I don't think it's going to help them long term. Short term meaning for the next 3 to 5 years, they'll be in a great spot. They'll be in the ACC. Now, it's going to be weird for that conference with the travel, but for SMU short term, they will be in a better conference. But long term, I don't think they're going to make the cut. Everybody still believes long term, and really that's kind of short term. That's only about 5 years out, that there's going to be a new Division I, and that'll be the Big Ten and the SEC, and maybe a couple schools poached from the ACC and the Big 12. We'll see about that. And then I think SMU will be left out of that. They'll definitely be left out of that. Now, maybe this gives them a little more credibility going forward to whatever the new Division II looks like, or whatever they call what's underneath the new Division I. Short term, great for SMU. Long term, I don't think it's going to help. And I wanted to add this note to this segment because I heard this, what is really a crazy note from the Pac-12, or what's left of it, through the Pac-12 rumor mill. Oregon State and Washington State are the two schools that are now going to be left behind if Cal and Stanford join the ACC. But I hear that they are actually excited for those two schools to leave.
And it's TCU against Colorado. Colorado now coached by Deion Sanders. TCU coming off of that national championship game appearance. It has all the makings to be the most interesting matchup of the weekend because of Colorado and how Deion is approaching rebuilding that program and making over that team from a 1-11 team last year and only 9 returning scholarships players on that whole entire team. So I don't know about you, but I know I will have that recorded so I can go back and make sure I watch every single second of it when I'm done with the tournament because I want my eyeballs on that one for sure.
It's fascinating, and I know everybody is fascinated by Deion to see what's going to happen there at Colorado. I've been almost fascinated with the people who have a problem with what he did because you look at this Colorado, I don't think people realize how bad Colorado was because it's one thing to say, oh, they went 1-11, because then you think, well, I'm sure there were some games they potentially could have won. You guys realize that Colorado last year finished dead last in scoring defense in the FBS. They allowed an average of 44.5 points. They were 127th in scoring offense, scoring about 15 points a game. They were outscored on average by almost 30 points a game. So not only were they losing, they were getting blown off the field. So when Deion comes in and says, you guys can't play for me, he's right, because they couldn't play in the Power 5. And as a matter of fact, if you look at all the guys that transferred out, the vast majority of them did not land with other Power 5 programs. A lot of those guys went to Group of 5, even FCS schools. So it is going to be interesting. TCU is fascinating, I think, because you were one of the luckiest programs I've ever seen last year that somehow would get down by multiple touchdowns in the second half, a lot of the times in the fourth quarter, found a way to win. Now you lose Max Duggan, but the quarterback that you originally wanted to go with the beginning of your last year anyway is now your starter again in Chandler Morris. They got a lot of transfers coming in as well. JoJo Earl, the receiver from Alabama, who's pretty good. J.P. Richardson from Oklahoma State. This is going to be interesting. And I don't even know how there's a line on this game, to be honest, because how in the world does anybody know what Colorado – we've never seen this team play.
And you almost kind of don't – I know they have a lot of returning starters there, but the key catalyst to a championship appearance last year is gone, and you kind of don't know what you have in TCU, as a matter of fact. So,
the three main dudes.
I'm kind of with you, and I know Deion will never, ever accept this, but if they can just hang around with Colorado, I think it is a major win for this. It would be a major win for this program, even if they wind up losing. Even if they wind up losing by a couple of touchdowns. If they hang tough with them throughout this entire game, then you'll know that the progress is being made with Deion in Colorado, and then you can almost feel he'll be a couple of steps away from making sure that program is okay and then bolting for higher ground.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to think about it now because you feel it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years. But I wonder the patience that he'll have because he's just used to having this, trying to, being around excellence. Jackson State was a really good team. They succeeded when he was there as a coach. So he hasn't seen a ton of failure as far as head coaching goes. And he's going to have to accept that there are going to be some bumps in the road. But again, competing with TCU on that national level will be incredible for them.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like when he got to Jackson State, he turned that thing around and made them very relevant very quickly at that level. He can recruit. He can coach. He knows how to motivate young men. I think that is fairly obvious. And Shedeur Sanders, his son, is a good quarterback. The guy can ball. He's not he's just my kid, I'm going to throw him in. He'll be the best quarterback Colorado's had in a long time. And then they have the number one player in the country from a year ago in Travis Hunter, who he recruited. He was the number one recruit in the country. He got him to come to Jackson State, who followed him to Colorado. Now, he was going two ways.
From Florida State, though.
Yeah,
that's the one
which
thing
is
that was
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
You're going to this prestigious program, and Deion got him to flip.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he, at Jackson State, was playing both sides of the ball. He would play receiver and cornerback. This is it's a fascinating game. And I love that it's at 11 a.m. I love that it's Deion and Sonny Dykes and what TCU did last year going against each other right off the bat to start this thing off. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do think TCU is going to win. I think TCU will come back to the mean a little bit. There's no way that you can escape games like they did last season and just strung together. I mean, TCU fans know this. You guys watch the games. You saw how many times, I can't believe we're losing to this team. Oh, my God, we're going to win. That's not going to happen again. You can't do that many times and get away with it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying in a season that was so magical for a program you didn't expect to be where it was, you have to have some luck. That's not disparaging anyone.
Right.
That's just realizing that, hey, it all fell your way. And as we always talk about having to take advantage of it when it's presented to you, TCU did.
Oh, they did. Did
the
they
perfect
ever.
example
Did
of
they ever.
saying it was right in front of us. We grabbed it and got to heights that no one thought we were going to be.
Right.
And we may not even come close to being on that same stage again.
They took as much advantage of every opportunity they could last season, maybe of any team ever. And they had a fantastic, magical season. So for the rest of college football, because not only am I going to be checking in on the TCU-Colorado game, they've gone away from this in college football in recent years, and I understand why. There used to be a lot of these big-time ranked matchups in week one right out of the gate. As you mentioned, Donnie, really the game of the weekend is on Sunday night on ABC, the 6:30 game between number 5 LSU and number 8 Florida State. Jaden Daniels and Jordan Travis, the two quarterbacks in this game that'll be Heisman Trophy frontrunners, two teams that will compete for a spot in the college football playoff, and you get a leg up right out of the gate. If LSU wins this, they'll jump up in the standings potentially. If Florida State wins this, they'll probably just flip-flop. So that'll be interesting. But it's wild to me because when you look at the slate of games, North Carolina, South Carolina on Saturday night. We talked to Greg McElroy earlier this week. He's going to be on the call in that game. That'll be interesting to see where they're at coming out of there. And one of the top top prospects in the NFL draft next year, Drake May, the North Carolina quarterback, who's an absolute beast. And let's not forget, OU fans very well aware, Spencer Rattler last year at South Carolina showed up, especially late. They stunned Clemson. They closed out the year and had a great last month or so of the season at South Carolina. And there's a lot of thought that South Carolina might be the team in the SEC East that kind of slots in behind Georgia. So that's a really big game to start off there as well. But other than that, man, there's a couple of things like Alabama, for instance. Yes, they're going to blow Middle Tennessee State off the field. They're favored by 39. Well, we just found out today that Jalen Milroe is going to be their starting quarterback for the game against the Blue Raiders tomorrow. But how is Nick Saban going to approach that quarterback position in a year where there's a lot of questions, especially in offense for Alabama? They haven't won a national title in 2 straight years, and we all go, so? That's amazing. Well, Nick Saban, his entire time at Alabama, has never gone 3 straight years without winning a national title. So there's a lot of pressure for Alabama this year. And that quarterback, I think, keeping your eye on how they approach that quarterback position with Texas coming to town next week is going to be really interesting. And I'm interested to see, knowing you've got everything you need. You finally got it all on paper. Yeah, you lose Bijan, but they are loaded at wide receiver. They've got a stout offensive line. The collective group of running backs is probably better than it's been in forever. And then Quinn Ewers. All we've heard all offseason is, Quinn Ewers has taken that next step. He cut his mullet. This is for real. Well, show us.
And it felt like he was on his way before he got hurt to being a decent, competent quarterback, something that Texas needs. I'm curious about the young kid from DeSoto, Jonte Cook, that's going to get some time at receiver. And they're loaded at receiver also, but he'll get some time. And just to see now that the talent is there for them to not play down to the level of competition, to go and just blow rice out of the water to get prepared for Alabama the next week. And if they can do that, then that matchup next week is going to be juicy. And I know we'll have plenty to talk on that one about that.
I can't wait for that game next week. That's just going to be a phenomenal game. But it's not as loaded an opening day for college football, but, man, it is going to be next week, and it is here. You got college football games tonight. You got them tomorrow. You got the big one Sunday, and then it wraps up on Monday, which I believe we'll have this game as well on the ticket, the Clemson-Duke game on Monday night, Labor Day night, 7 o'clock.
Anything jump at you last night? Florida and Utah?
Florida-Utah went the way I thought it would. I don't think Florida is going to be good this year. I think it's the end of Billy Napier at Florida. So if you're a Gator fan, your national nightmare is perhaps about to be over, but it's going to be a rough season. Utah's good. Utah is going to be one of those players in the Pac-12. Other than that, nothing really stuck out to me last night. I know people were all about the Minnesota-Nebraska game. Those 2 teams suck. Whatever. What? I mean, it's just what it is. Let's be honest.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But you got a handful of games tonight. Nothing that really jumps out as necessary. But if you're an A&M fan, next week, keep in mind, you guys go to Miami. The Hurricanes open their season tonight against Miami of Ohio. So if you want to do a little pre-scouting before you go down to the Hard Rock Stadium there in Miami, you can catch the Hurricanes tonight. So you got a little something there.
I see tickets as low as $5 for the Miami of Ohio and Miami Hurricane game.
There it is, man. That is. Can Tyler Van Dyke and Mario Cristobal figure it out this season? Who knows? We'll find out.
Aumenta el desempeño de tu vehículo y ahorra gasolina con O'Reilly Auto Parts y Lucas. Llévate 2 botellas de tratamiento para combustible Lucas por solo $10. Además, obtén puntos dobles o rewards con esta oferta. Detalles en la tienda.
About the passing of Gil Brandt, formerly of the Cowboys and the Cowboys Ring of Honor, an innovator for the NFL, not only the Cowboys but the NFL and scouting, and my former partner. Let's go to the Diamond Factory Ticket Hotline. My former partner, Norm Hiskus, and Gil Brandt were buddies, big buddies. So let's talk about the legend of Gil Brandt with the legendary Norm Hiskus. Do you read me, Norm?
I do. Good morning, Donnie. Morning, Matt.
Morning, Norm.
Norm, let's talk about Gil Brandt. He was with the Cowboys from 60 until 88, and he was a trendsetter in the NFL as far as scouting goes and finding talent. Just talk about what he brought to the game and the Cowboys.
Well, the Cowboys were a startup organization in 1960 when the triumvirate, Tex Graham, Tom Landry, and Gil Brandt,
took over their various but well-defined areas. First, let me tell you, at times I was a reporter with Channel 4. That's where I started here in Dallas. At times you would go to Tex Schramm and ask a question, and he'd say, that's Gil Brandt's area. And you'd ask Gil Brandt a question, and he'd say, that one's for Tom Landry. The lines were so clearly drawn between the three. But Brandt, you know, guys, people talk about Gil Brandt using a computer. The first one in the NFL to use a computer to grade prospects. And that's true. But Gil Brandt had a computer before the Cowboys got a computer. And that was his mind. His mind was incredible. And Donnie, we sometimes joked on the air, I don't know why certain things stick in a mind like dry mud on a wall. But Gil Brandt had thousands, tens of thousands of facts about people, girlfriends, summer jobs, things that maybe those people didn't want other people to know.
Right. He had everything.
Yeah.
He had everything. He knew trainers. He knew assistant coaches. He knew high school football coaches. And he would delve into players, not only physically, timing them, measuring their hands. Nobody ever did that before in the NFL, and all that other stuff. But Gil Brandt had this wealth of knowledge. And when we started doing the draft full-time, 1986, on KLIF, and now the ticket, Gil was still the Cowboys personnel director. So who would Norm call to ask for information? Well, Gil would never tell you about specifics like rounds or things like that. But you'd bring up a name and he'd say, I don't think you want him in your locker room. Oh, man. He was truly an innovator. People call him a pioneer, innovator, whatever you want to call him. Gil Brandt was the first of his kind, and he was one of a kind.
What were your first interactions like with him? At what point did you and he first cross paths?
1972. Training camp, maybe even before that, but training camp, 1972, at Cal Lutheran, which, by the way, guys, was not quite like the Cowboys training camp of today. But you could talk to Gil, and Gil would always talk to you. He might not always tell you what you want, but he would always talk to you. And without question, you'd find out things. Important things? Sometimes no, but things. And Gil, there are so many stories about Gil. Let me just go to, first of all, one of his accomplishments. Back then, the NFL did not go to historically black colleges and universities. They just didn't mine that set of colleges for talent. And there was Gil finding Rayfield Wright at Fort Valley State, Everson Walls at Grambling, Jethro Pugh at Elizabeth City State. I wonder how many scouts had ever set foot on that campus before Gil Brandt arrived. And he had this feel, guys, for talent. And back then, there were no roster limitations. I mean, you could bring 150 people to camp if you wanted to, which, by the way, as I recall, Gil sometimes did.
Wow.
They just go ahead.
No. Finish your statement, Norm.
I was just going to say they'd arrive in carloads or busloads, and they'd arrive in
8 would arrive and 10 would leave, and the next day 6 would arrive and 4 would leave. But he found people. How many personnel directors in the history of the NFL have 2 undrafted Hall of Fame players in their resume? Cliff Harris and Drew Pearson.
That is a feather in the cap. And we discuss, Norm, all the time about the roles in the front office, about how, if you're the owner, then you have, pretty friendly, you're happy, you're maybe friendly with everyone, but the GM has to be pretty cutthroat as far as, dismissing talent and bringing people in to replace other people. Did Gil Brandt have that kind of harshness about him, just telling you the truth and the facts about the team, and that's why they got so successful pretty quickly?
No, Gil was a little closed when you met him. Now, when you got to know him, he would tell you more and more stuff. He was not a closed man at all. Now, Gil was a very private man in his private life. But Gil was, well, let's just say, textgram at times could not be easy to talk to. And let's leave that there. But Gil, you could approach Gil. Gil would talk to you. Gil's mind was always churning. Lads, why does the NFL have a combine? Gil Brandt. Gil Brandt got a group of teams together and said, hey, why don't we look at these prospects together? And, it was Gil Brandt who measured things, and the stories of Gil Brandt are just legendary about him meeting a prospect at the Jacksonville airport and timing him in a 40-yard dash in one of the hallways. He was just so innovative. Mind was always grinding. And by the way, he was really good friends with 2 people, Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. Well, he was really good friends with 2,000 people. But Gil Brandt went to Cleveland when Belichick was on the staff there. And Belichick just soaked up what Gil had to offer. And Saban the same thing. And guys, you know what? I'd like a number. And that number would be the number of phone numbers in Gil Brandt's Rolodex. Because he didn't have a smartphone. I have to tell you, one of the other things I loved about Gil Brandt, he had a flip phone.
You guys were in the flip phone club. You had meetings once a month, right?
Hey, but you could ask Gil Brandt about a player from 30 years ago, and boom, the information would start to flow. Height, weight, school, where he was from, what his father did. Who has information like that? What'd your father do? And who cares if they have that information? But Gil had it. He asked questions.
Norm, you obviously, as you said, you knew him for over 50 years.
Yeah.
You have so many stories about Gil, but I'm curious your personal connection, one of your favorite memories of a time that you had with Gil.
Is there a favorite time with Gil? I'll tell you what I really enjoyed about Gil, and this happened several times. Gil liked to spar. That was one of Gil's favorite things to do. He liked to spar with you, and he'd ask questions that he knew you didn't know the answer to. And he'd say, well, you didn't know this, did you? And he wasn't putting it down. It was just he had this giant brain that had stuff in it from everywhere. And by the way, Gil not only graded football players. Remember now, star all-pro cornerback Cornell Green was a basketball player that Gil got to sign with the Cowboys. And Rayfield Wright, whom we've mentioned already, he was primarily a basketball player at Fort Valley State when the Cowboys took him in the 11th round. But Gil just had these unending stories and facts, and he had fun with you. And I think he knew you really wanted to know stuff. And Gil would choose how and when to parcel it out. He was fun.
Well, Norm,
he was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your memories of Gil Brandt, passing away today at the age of 91. Started working part-time in the NFL in 1958 before he got with the Cowboys in 1960. And like you said, just a true innovator, not just for the Cowboys, but for the NFL. We truly appreciate your expertise, and we'll talk to you again real soon, Norm.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate the call.
Thanks, Norm. That is Norm Hitzges, Texas Radio Hall of Famer. Former partner for 8 years. As a matter of fact, our show started like July 31st. I think when I first started working with him in 2015, we started around August 31st or something like that.
Really?
Something about 31 with me and new shows, I think. So watch out for next year, man. 10:50.